by bringing in this change of government, and now we want to hand it over to people who can do it. I think the Gen Z gets a bad rep for a lot of different things, including their addiction to the screen and social media, where, by the way, they made this happen. I think we have to give them credit for not being power hungry or just trying to stay in power by whatever means possible, the very things that they had accused their politicians across all the political parties of.
So Sheila Karki was a popular Gen Z choice to be Nepal's latest PM, but for that to become an official appointment, she needed the approval of both Nepal's president and its army chief.
So when during this protest, the Nepali military emerged as a voice of sanity, as the only organization that is standing there, has not fled this period of instability and is bringing back stability in Nepal, there is indeed, I think, a little bit of concern, like there would be in any democracy where the military suddenly gains popular legitimacy. That is not good for a democracy. The military should only be operational when there is a war outside the country.
The interim government will hand over power to whoever wins the next election due in March 2026.
I think her biggest role would be that she's able to hold a peaceful, legitimate election in 6 months and establish that democratic mandate that she does not have. There are people I've spoken to who were actually worried that what new thing can happen in 6 months? It's going to be the same political parties and the same political elite that is going to come back, and things would go back exactly to where they were. But personally, I think this is the smartest thing that the interim government could have done to protect themselves and also to protect the democratic future of Nepal. Whether Nepal is going to be able to capitalize this moment in their history and turn the country towards a more representative, more efficient, more participatory, democratic form of government, it remains to be seen.
So back to our main question. Can Gen Z shape a new Nepal? In just a few weeks, the movement toppled a government and played a key role in the political transformation that followed. The cycle of three-party leaders with rotating stints as Prime Minister has been broken. It's also succeeded in drawing attention to poor economic opportunities, corruption concerns and political instability. It's too early to know whether this will lead to long-lasting change, but there are a few signs that it might. The frustrations of younger people resonate across generations, so the support base is broader. The Gen Z focus has been on drawing attention to the need for change, not to take power. So maybe its mission is complete. This episode of The Inquiry was written and presented by me, Charmaine Hosier. The producer was Jill Collins, researcher Mae Schaffer, editor Tom Bigwood, and technical producer James Bradshaw.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're listening to CBC live from downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It's mainly cloudy this morning. It is a high of 7 degrees that we'll be looking for in the city today. Right now, partly cloudy and 3 degrees currently. In Brandon, good morning to you. Cloudy and 0 right now in your city. And in Thompson, light snow falling and it's 1 degree. Let's say hello to the team. Corey Funk is here directing the show and we'll be covering your commute. Abby Adeyemi is our senior tech and covers weather on the show. Morning, Abby. Morning, Corey. And good morning to Darren Marash, who's behind the controls of YouTube. He's our producer of the stream there if you're watching the show. All right, Heather Wells is here as well. She has the day's news headlines and developing stories to get us started here. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, the number of children in care in this province is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year, about 250 more than the year before, and it is the first notable rise since pre-pandemic days. So we'll hear more about that. And the Sisler Spartans will have Darius Hartshorn in their hearts and on their helmets next time they take to the field. The grade 12 student suffered life-changing injuries in a game last week. His coach, Sean Esselmont, says the freak injury has hit the team and the school community hard, and so the teammates are going to wear decals with his number 57 on their helmets when they open playoffs tomorrow night. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Really touching gesture from the team there. 2 minutes to 6 o'clock right now. National and international news coming up, but let's have a quick peek at the program today. We are having ongoing conversations about what is happening with youth violence, with school violence. This after 2 alleged attacks on young Ukrainian newcomers at a school in Winnipeg. We are going to talk to a person that's going to weigh in on the bigger picture today, and that's coming up in a feature interview before 8 o'clock. She's the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention, but she also has been looking at policies and programs and says that a lot of what we have in place in this country isn't coming close to helping the kids. In addition, we're going to hear about one of the pools in the city that is slated for closure for repairs. So the Seven Oaks pool on Adsum Drive, we'll find out more.
Today on Q. Greg Wells is an award-winning record producer. He's worked with some of the biggest artists in the world. He was also recently made a member of the Order of Canada. So he'll be here to talk about his life in music and why he's renovated an old church in rural Newfoundland.
And it has created this whole thing in my life that I can't imagine my life not having in it.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Prime Minister Mark Carney addresses Canadians tonight. Carney will be delivering a primetime speech from Ottawa. It is expected to be a preview of the federal budget, which drops on November 4th. This speech is supposed to prepare Canadians for some difficult choices ahead. It will also be an attempt to convince the other parties to push through Carney's minority government's fiscal roadmap. The CBC's Janice McGregor joins me now from Ottawa. And Janice, how is Carney going to get this through a minority parliament?
Marcia, Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon yesterday was criticizing the opposition for not being realistic and making what he called ludicrous demands.
And when I see opposition parties not ruling out the possibility of voting for the budget, that's starting to worry me.
It was no surprise to see the Conservative leader call for tax cuts Monday. And, Mark Carney hasn't ruled out targeted tax measures, although Liberals and Conservatives aren't really looking at the same things. But Pierre Poilievre's demand to hold the budget deficit to $42 billion at a time when the Liberals are rolling out ambitious plans for defense spending, energy infrastructure, housing, that's the demand that seems most certain to be ignored, as is the list of demands the Bloc Québécois laid out last week, including 6 non-negotiable priorities that include more unconditional provincial transfers and a renewal of their demand to increase seniors' pensions. The NDP, though, has been far less specific so far. Its interim leader, Don Davies, yesterday denied that he's negotiating to leverage their 7 votes.
Well, those reports are 100% false, categorically untrue. There's been no discussions whatsoever with the government about exchanging anything with the government for our support for the budget. So it's simply not true.
Instead, New Democrats say they're going to wait and analyze a budget when they see it. Liberals are so close to having a majority, however, that a few strategic absences or abstentions may be all it takes to get this initial budget approved and, of course, avoid an election.
Would anyone want an election right now?
Well, look, Poilievre's in a much weaker position than he was a year ago. He no longer rides high in the polls. He's facing a leadership review from his party early next year. And our colleagues at Radio Canada this morning are reporting he may be in for a rough caucus meeting because MPs are increasingly concerned that Poilievre looks too much like someone obsessed with fighting old battles from the Trudeau era. The Bloc Québécois has activists that at the moment are much more focused on helping the Parti Québécois win power in the upcoming Quebec election. And New Democrats are unlikely to want to fight another campaign before picking a new leader. The Canadian Labour Congress hosting a forum tonight for the 5 candidates approved to run in that race. Party members, though, don't vote until March.
Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor. The International Court of Justice delivers an important opinion today. The landmark statement is about Israel's legal obligation toward UN agencies working in the occupied Palestinian territories. The opinion is not binding but carries moral and diplomatic weight. It comes as humanitarian agencies are desperate to get far more aid into Gaza. Crystal Gomansing reports.
If we had more crossing points, we would be able to deliver more aid.
Only 2 crossing points leading to the southern strip are open, says Kate Newton with the World Food Programme, Kerem Shalom and Kisufim.
At the moment, we've been moving more than 100 trucks a day on good days and less than that on less good days.
How much aid gets into Gaza, which has areas with declared famine conditions, depends on what's happening on the ground, the speed of Israeli inspections, and what items they allow in. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is the World Health Organization's Director General.
If you take the famine and then combine it with a mental health problem that we see, which is rampant, the situation is a crisis for generations to come.
Humanitarian agencies hope to see more action on aid with the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and the President's son-in-law Jared Kushner, all in Israel. Vance says the ceasefire is going better than expected.
And given the history of conflict, I think that everybody should be proud of where we are today.
Regional security, the reconstruction of Gaza, and the return of the remaining 13 deceased hostages still in Gaza are all part of conversations the vice president is having with Israeli officials. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A meeting is on hold between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump says he doesn't want the meeting to, quote, be a waste of time. The two leaders were going to meet in Budapest in the coming weeks. Now the White House says there are no plans for a meeting in the immediate future. Meanwhile, both Ukraine and Russia launched more strikes overnight. Fire crews evacuate an apartment building in Zaporizhia. Ukraine's president says the city was one of many targeted in Russian overnight assaults. Volodymyr Zelensky says at least 6 people were killed in attacks on residential buildings. Ukraine's military says it attacked a Russian chemical plant, as well as an oil refinery and an ammunition plant. Whale sightings are not unusual in the waters off BC. Humpbacks and other species come to feed during the spring and summer, but their growing numbers mean more of them are being exposed to boats and ships. There are 2 collisions in the last month, and as Jonna Bailon reports, whale researchers are worried.
The education can make such a difference, and we really are beseeching people.
Jackie Hildering with the Marine Education and Research Society is pleading with commercial vessels and leisure boaters to do their part after a high-speed ferry operated by Hullo struck a humpback whale near Vancouver last week.
Hopefully people care and care enough, again, to realize, not inevitable, there is so much we can do, so much in education and vigilance.
Fisheries and Oceans Canada says the company reported the incident and is cooperating with the investigation. On Tuesday, a photo posted online shows an injured whale with a deep gash in its fin. DFO has confirmed that it's the same whale injured last week. It comes a month after another humpback whale was found dead, not far from a collision with a BC Ferries vessel near the northern coast.
Unfortunately, it is becoming more and more common, especially since the humpback population has increased so significantly in such a short period of time along the coast of BC. So
that's researcher Janie Ray with the North Coast Cetacean Society.
They don't have the ability to echolocate, so they may hear that vessel underwater, but they don't know where it is.
Hildering and Ray are unanimous in their advice for people on the water to watch their speed and slow down. Jonna Bailon, CBC News, Vancouver.
2 new reports on last year's wildfire in Jasper, Alberta confirm it was caused by lightning. They conclude dry conditions and tornado-force winds hit 200 kilometers an hour to fuel the fire. It started as 3 separate incidents before merging into one. That fire destroyed a third of the town's buildings in July of 2024. Some 25,000 residents and visitors were forced to leave the community. They are being called Canada's team, and baseball fans across the country are getting ready to watch the Toronto Blue Jays play in the World Series. But in Montreal, Expos fans say it's complicated. Sarah Levitt has more.
Gary Carter, the best One of Brian Bloomer's bedrooms is a shrine to the Montreal Expos, covered in photos, jerseys, and hats.
We used to go to 10 games a year, 111 QQ. I really honestly miss them.
The Montreal Expos were Canada's first Major League Baseball team. 1969 was their inaugural season, but it all ended in 2004, and Bloomer had to find himself a new team, the Toronto Blue Jays.
The Toronto Blue Jays are going to the World Series.
They're Canada's team now. You have to cheer for them whether you live in Montreal, Vancouver, Alberta, or Saskatchewan.
Not everybody agrees, including Noah Seidel.
It's our birthright as Montrealers to hate Toronto sports teams. I mean, could you ever imagine a sports fan from Boston cheering for a team from New York? It doesn't make any sense.
It goes deeper than that. The emotions are felt perhaps more acutely with the newly released Netflix documentary, Who Killed the Montreal Expos?
Why? Why is that team gone?
A complicated question with multiple suspects and no clear answer. Some fans, like David Winch, still hold a grudge against the Blue Jays for voting in favor of eliminating the Expos.
Very sadly, the Blue Jays as an organization, through its president, voted yes. Well, come on, it was the Expos that introduced Major League Baseball to Canada.
Something many Expos fans won't soon forgive, even if the Jays are in the World Series. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Welcome to the October 22nd show. It is Wednesday morning. We have a high of 7 degrees in our forecast today. This hour on the show, a city-owned pool in northwest Winnipeg will soon close for over a year to undergo a multi-million-dollar renovation. We're going to hear from some of the people who will lose their community pool in Seven Oaks, so stay tuned. Also, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission asked governments to reduce the number of Indigenous adults and youth in jail over a 10-year period. 2 calls to action were specific about that a decade ago in the Truth and Reconciliation calls from the Commission. So what's happened 10 years out? We're going to get a special report this hour from CBC's Cal Musica. And then a little bit later, we are going to hear more at 10 to 7 this morning about an announcement that came earlier this week in Ottawa. New measures to fight financial scams and abuse. Could it help you when you're picking up the phone or logging on? We'll find out. We'll hear more about how that new plan is going to affect us at the ground level here. Right now to other stories and headlines. Here's Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the number of children in care in Manitoba is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year, about 3 more than the year before, 3% more than the year before. We're going to hear from the Manitoba Foster Parent Association coming up. And a Northern Manitoba First Nation is mourning the sudden death of their longtime fire chief. Manitoba Kuwaitanawi Okamakanak announcing yesterday Pimachikamak Cree Nation Fire Chief Raymond McKay has died. The Northern Chiefs Group says McKay was instrumental keeping the community safe during wildfire evacuations this summer. So we'll hear more from them as well in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the weather now with Abby Adeyemi.
Good morning, Marcy.
Morning.
It's more like a chilly midweek, Marcy. I'm looking at -3 at the airport at this time, and if we look at conditions at the Forks, we're seeing 2 degrees. So if you're looking at your gadget this morning, depending on where you are, you might be seeing something around -3 and between -3 and 2 degrees wherever you are. And that's similar conditions we're seeing even all the way down to the U.S. border this morning. But Winnipeg right now, we're looking at -3 and 2 degrees. It's going to be mostly cloudy today. We get to see a few sunny breaks in between with light winds coming from the west. Our highs will reach 7 degrees, which is the seasonal for this time of the year. We're already getting close to winter, so we're still just enjoying that grace period of fall before Mr. Frosty makes his appearance.
I'm not saying -3. Forget it. That's the airport temp. I'm sticking with 2. I'm not doing it.
Well, Marcy, okay, if you're not taking -3 and if you're not taking chilly, I bet you know we're already seeing light snow in Thompson.
I know.
So let's start getting ready for Mr. Frosty to be visiting this part of the province. Also down south, we're seeing some foggy conditions this morning. That should lift, and then it's going to transition to mostly cloudy skies. Most regions will see 8 degrees in the south, but Winnipeg, we're going to get to 7. Up north, we're going to see highs between 5 and 6. We're seeing temperatures currently near 0 up north at this time. So it's more like a chilly, cool day across board. Winnipeg, we are at 2 degrees now.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
See what I did there? I convinced him. I pressured him. He ended by saying it was 2.
Oh.
He's letting go of the minus.
That's good. Good. Well, it made me worry because my hose is still attached to my
I know,
house.
so is mine.
I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I know. We all have that this week, I think. It's the acceptance.
Yes,
that
I
we
know.
have to put it all away. This is Corey Funk we're talking to, by the way. What's up in the commute?
So far, actually, very quiet commute overall. Haven't heard of any major issues out there. I always get worried, though, as soon as you hear below 0. It's like, do we have slippery highways? Do we not?
We're not there yet in the south, I don't think, at least.
I don't think
Well,
so.
maybe in the north,
You
though.
never know. So if things are slippery where you are or anything like that, do give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing or experiencing out there. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, one of the things that people do at this time of the day, 6:14 a.m. and even earlier, is hit the pool for some morning laps. But Winnipeg's Seven Oaks pool out on Adsum Drive will be closed for 12 to 14 months for renovations. The main tank at the pool will close starting December 14th. According to the city, this is going to be a $3.5 million fix. It involves concrete and structural repairs, waterproofing, and tile replacement as well. The city says people can find alternate indoor swimming locations on its website. But you know what this is like when this is your neighborhood pool. We spoke to some pool users yesterday who said they were sad to learn about the closure. Just a note to our YouTube audience, not everyone agreed to be on camera.
Tony DiOrio.
Pool is closing, the Seven Oaks pool, for about almost 14 months. What do you have to say about this?
I'm going to miss it. I don't understand why it's got to be 14 months. They say capital project, so I guess it is what it is, but we're going to miss it. We're going to have to go to the other facilities, I guess, which are going to be busy because everybody is going to have to go somewhere if they want to participate. So I do it for exercise, and I had surgery recently, so I need to sort of rehab. So I'm going to miss it, and it's close by. So yeah, I don't understand why that, but I'm sure there's an explanation for the length of time. If they're redoing everything, it does need a lot of work inside. You know, you can tell it's getting tired, sort of thing. So, yeah, gonna miss it.
And how long have you been using this for?
Well, I moved here from BC, and even when we visited here, say 21, 22, I'd come and use the pool because I'm used to it from where I came from in BC. And yeah, since July of 23, pretty much regularly.
And now since this is going to close, have you thought of any alternatives?
Well, talking to some of the local fellas and folks that have been here for a number of years, Tommy Prince apparently, down on Jarvis, and Elmwood has a similar pool to this, and on Sargent, I forget the name of it on Sargent, but it's Cindy Clausen, that complex. And I've gone on tours of them, but I just haven't used them yet. So.
Hi, it's Kim Potted-Warney. So Kim, the pool is closing down. How do you feel about it?
I'm sad about it. I use the pool daily to swim laps, so it'll be inconvenient, but I totally understand.
And have you thought of any alternatives while this is being closed?
Of course. The pool was closed before for renos, so I used Cindy Clausen.
Okay, and like, are you a regular swimmer here, and you come here regularly? And if so, how has this pool benefited you?
Oh yes, I'm totally a regular swimmer. I try to come 1 or 2 times a week. I've been using it since I lived here because it's our community pool, and I absolutely love it. It benefited me because it strengthened my lap training. I was a flight attendant and I needed to know how to swim, so I just brushed up at this pool and I loved it. So it's a little bit of an inconvenience, but you know what? I'd rather have a pool functioning properly than not. So I'm okay with them having to close it down.
Alyssa Nichols. Closing down for renovations. How will it affect you?
Well, we usually use the pool, and my son comes here for swimming lessons, so it's kind of annoying to have to go to like somewhere else in the city to do it because there's no other really close pools in this area, so it's a nuisance.
So have you thought of any alternatives to where to send your son now?
Well, our only other option would probably be Cindy Clausen, so which is farther, not as close. Went through a renovation, so I don't know what they're doing again.
My name is Veena. Last name is Salam.
Yeah, tell me, like, do you use the pool? How often do you use the pool? Since when have you been using?
I've been using him since my daughter was a small child, and these are my grandkids, and I come with my grandkids. And it's going to be sad for it not to be available for 14 months.
So what are you going to do for those 14 months? Have you thought of any alternatives?
We have to find another pool to take the children.
And how has this pool, as you mentioned that you've been coming here, getting your kids, grandkids, how has this pool helped your entire family? How grateful are you for this pool?
I am very grateful because my daughter learned to swim here, my kids are learning to swim here, and it's good for the community.
That was a CBC Zabina Ahmed on a windy day outside of the pool, speaking with people outside the Seven Oaks pool. So December 14th is closing day for the main tank. The pool is on Adsum Drive. It will, as you've been hearing, be closed to 12 to 14 months. And the work is extensive. So concrete, structural repairs, waterproofing, and tile replacement.
North of North is in fashion, literally. CBC and the WAG are partnering to present Crafted on the Catwalk November 4th, a fashion show featuring cast members of the breakout comedy displaying designer clothes from Manitoba and the North. Then shop for fine handmade goods at Crafted Show and Sale November 7th to 9th. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more, including an exclusive North of North screening and meet and greet.
That sounds fun. Also, I've been to Crafted myself a couple times over at the WAG. It's a fun event and just lovely to see all the talented makers. 6:20 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with CBC's Information Radio on the morning show here. Chilly to start, 2 degrees in Winnipeg, 1 in Brandon, and light snow falling in Thompson, and it is 0. Well, it has been almost 10 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action were released. Today, we're going to look at 2 calls in particular. They outline 10-year timelines around justice for Indigenous people. Calls 30 and 38 ask all levels of government to reduce overrepresentation of Indigenous people and Indigenous youth in custody within a decade. Well, that time's up, as I mentioned. Kyle Musica is here to tell us more. He's Métis from Treaty 8 territory. He's a reporter with CBC Radio, and I spoke with him at 6.
Good morning.
So the big question here, were governments able to reduce overrepresentation of Indigenous adults and youth in the justice system in this decade?
No, they were not. So according to numbers from Statistics Canada, they have arguably gotten worse. In 2014-15, Indigenous people represented about 26% of adults admitted into correctional services. In 23-24, that number has increased to 31%. So it's about a 5% increase over a 10-year stretch. Meanwhile, the number of youth admitted into correctional services in 14-15 was 32%, and in 23-24 it was 41%. So that's about a 9% increase over those 10 years. So in that decade, we've actually seen an increase in proportion of Indigenous people, both as adults and as youth, being admitted into correctional facilities. An important context to note here is that Indigenous people make up about 5% of Canada's total population, about 8% of Canada's youth population. So you can tell that both these numbers were already inflated. They're even worse now. The numbers have sort of stabilized over the past 8 years or so, but I do want to take all of this into account and just to say that the calls are still not answered. I mean, things haven't improved. They have arguably gotten worse. And I had the chance to speak with the correctional investigator of Canada, Dr. Ivan Zinger. Now, he can only comfortably speak to the numbers of adults in correctional facilities, but he shared a little context with me that I thought painted quite a stark picture. He says in 1997, the Supreme Court of Canada cited numbers that said 12% of federal inmates were Indigenous, and they called it at the time, quote, a crisis.
Today, in federal corrections, 33%, so 1/3 of the federal prison population is of Indigenous descent. So if it was a crisis back then, I don't know what it is now.
So that was Dr. Ivan Zinger. He also told me that the situation, in his view, has not improved and rather has, quote, significantly deteriorated.
So what are the reasons that the situation has not improved over the past decade?
Yeah, so when I spoke to Dr. Zinger, he said it's not for lack of presented solutions on the table. He says Indigenous people are more likely to serve longer terms. They're more likely to be placed in both maximum security and solitary confinement. They're more likely to be transferred to places outside their community, more likely to be subjected to use of force, more likely to have their parole suspended or revoked, and are more likely to reoffend. Now, the Correctional Investigator Office, knowing all that, has been producing report after report with suggestions on how to reduce these high rates. One of the solutions that Zinger says would help is by building, funding, and putting more Indigenous inmates in healing lodges that are run by communities with a cultural approach to rehabilitation. But wholesale change like that has been pretty challenging to come by. Now, I reached out to Correctional Services Canada. They said that they are addressing the overrepresentation by, quote, enhancing cultural supports and streamlining release processes. They also said that they're providing funding to help Indigenous offenders who are reintegrating into society by helping them transition. But they said that they recognize that there is more work to be done as well.
What does the lack of progress on these calls say about where we're at with reconciliation?
Yeah, I think, of course, there's many ways to measure our progress, but by using this one, we haven't really made any at all. One thing, though, that I thought was really interesting that Dr. Zinger had shared with me was that, these high incarceration rates for Indigenous people actually might say more about other parts of society. Take a listen to what he had to say.
When it comes to the gross overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the system, you can basically use the incarceration rate, which is off the chart for Indigenous people, as a barometer to gauge the success and failure of public policies. If you see, for example, the trend seeing more and more over-incarceration to either stop or reverse itself, it would be probably because you're doing stuff at the front end in society correctly. If you do that, you would see the incarceration rate being impacted, but it isn't.
So that was Dr. Ivan Zinger again. So even though he's focused on incarceration specifically, he highlights these other places in society where there are holes and where there are often gaps that negatively impact Indigenous people. And to get back to the second question, Marcy, about, why hasn't the situation improved over the last decade? I think Dr. Zinger would say that a lot of it has to do with what's going on in what he calls the front end of society. So talking about Indigenous people having less secure housing or having less access to and funding for education. This idea that everything is connected, and those things are the result of these high incarceration rates. So
I know there's not a simple answer to this, but I'll ask the question simply. Does it mean that we've made no progress at all?
Not quite. I think there is a little bit of a silver lining here that Erwin Ellman helped me find. He's the president of Defence for Children International Canada. He was also the last child advocate for Ontario before that provincial government shuttered the office. And he shared a lot of insights with me about Indigenous youth in particular. In his experience in talking with Indigenous youth, nothing has really changed for them either. And it has sort of led to that feeling of hopelessness.
And when people are hopeless, and when people don't feel like they have a path forward, oftentimes that's where they come in conflict with the law for all sorts of reasons. That's why nothing has changed for those children. Have the rates changed, and has anything different changed in the lives of Aboriginal young people? And the answer is no. So no matter what government says they've done, nothing has hit really the ground in terms of the lives of children and youth.
So that was Erwin Ellman, but here's where that path forward might sort of kick in that he's talking about. He says that there's a difference between change and influence. And he said while things may not have changed, Ellman believes people like Murray Sinclair and the TRC report have influenced many people to think and see the world differently. So, of course, there's big difference between thinking and seeing and doing. But he says, I think his point is that the report still matters. This idea that talking about this stuff still matters, even though the governments have failed calls 30 and 38 in terms of hitting those timelines, it's still important to make progress to reduce these rates and to bring awareness to these issues.
All right, Carl, thank you for your report.
Thank you so much.
Kyle Muzica, reporter with CBC Radio. We reached him this morning in Edmonton. Well, we're coming up to news time at 6:30, and you might have heard Heather mention that Prime Minister Mark Carney is slated to deliver a live address tonight to Canadians about the fall budget. Leaders are talking about it as well. NDP interim leader Don Davies was speaking from Ottawa yesterday. He's dismissing reports that the NDP are negotiating with the Liberals ahead of the November 4th budget in exchange for more party funding. Here's what he said to a reporter.
You have the budget coming up. There were reports that you had some conversations with Mr. McKinnon about potential more funding for the NDP in exchange for supporting the budget in some form or another. What do you have to say to these reports, and what would it take to get NDP support in the upcoming budget?
Well, those reports are 100% false, categorically untrue. There's been no discussions whatsoever with the government about exchanging anything with the government for our support for the budget. So it's simply not true. I think what you might be referring to is 4 days after the election on April 28th, I said that the NDP was seeking official party status, and that would be seeking financial support to support our work here as parliamentarians. We sent a letter to the Board of Internal Economy in June, and that letter's been sitting there ever since. And finally, any decision to give the NDP any kind of parliamentary resources to do our work here would require unanimous support by the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and Liberals. So it's not even anything that could be exchanged. As I've said before, we're going to wait as a caucus for that budget to be tabled. It's a very important budget. We're going to analyze it when it comes out through the lens of whether or not it's good for working families. We've been very clear that we will oppose any attempt at imposing austerity on Canadians at a time when we think we need to invest. We need to invest in Canadian communities, Canadian companies, Canadian workers, and Canadian infrastructure. And, we've been also very clear that we're going to be looking at this budget to create good family-sustaining jobs, build non-market affordable housing, and also strengthen our healthcare system. So we've been very clear with this government where we stand, and we'll wait till November 4th to see if the government responds.
Interim NDP leader Don Davies speaking to reporters yesterday. The budget is, by the way, a confidence vote. That means minority Liberals do need the cooperation of at least one other party in order for it to pass. We'll see what the Prime Minister has to say in his address to the nation about the fall budget tonight. Still ahead, business news. We're going to get some reaction to yesterday's inflation numbers, which jumped. That's after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is chilly. In fact, the word wind chill is in our forecast this morning. Right now, it is 2 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. Depending where you are in the city, might depend how chilly it is, because at the airport it is -3. Our high today, seasonal, at 7. The number of children in care in Manitoba is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year, about 3% more than the year before. Legislative amendments that came in last fall were designed to place more children with family in kinship arrangements. As of March, about 42 were in those settings. Jamie Pfau is president at the Manitoba Foster Parent Association. She supports kinship care but wants more oversight.
And we have even less oversight and accountability in customary and kinship care. That's alarming, and we should be focused on building capacity and promoting that. But there needs to be supports in place for that. And right now, I'm not seeing any.
The province says the hope is the kinship care policies will bring the number of kids in care down. The Sisler Spartans will have Darius Hartshorn in their hearts and on their helmets the next time they take to the field. The grade 12 student suffered life-changing injuries to his neck in a game last week. Sean Esselman is the head coach and athletic director at Sisler. He says the freak injury has hit the team and the school community hard.
He is probably one of the most genuine and wonderful young men I've had the pleasure of coaching in all of my time here. He has just such a big personality. He is everyone's best friend on the team, everyone's brother, and he has just been a wonderful and joy to coach for these past 4 years.
With Hartshorn still in hospital, Esselmont says his teammates will wear decals with his number, 57, on their helmets when they open playoffs tomorrow night. The sudden death of a Northern Manitoba First Nations fire chief has dealt a devastating blow to the community. Raymond McKay worked for decades as the fire chief at Pimachikamak Cree Nation, also known as Cross Lake. Pimachikamak Chief David Monias says McKay was a beloved member in the community.
And he has a lot of friends that are out here that are really missing him. Not only was he well known in Cross Lake, but he's well known in terms of with the firefighters across Canada.
Monias says McKay was instrumental in keeping the community safe during this summer's devastating wildfires. He says no cause of death will be revealed until an autopsy is done. Plans are in the works for a memorial service and a procession. Well, the Prime Minister's office calls it a budget preview. Mark Carney will deliver a live address tonight from Ottawa as his government puts the final touches on what will be his first budget as Prime Minister. It's set to be tabled November 4th. Meanwhile, another fiscal analysis has been released suggesting the federal deficit will be significantly larger than expected. The Desjardins Financial Group says it could top $74 billion. That is about $6 billion more than the parliamentary budget officer has been projecting. U.S. President Donald Trump says he doesn't want a wasted meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin about the war in Ukraine. The two leaders were supposed to meet in Budapest in the coming weeks, but now that meeting appears to be off.
I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals, agreements, solid agreements, every one of them.
The Trump administration helped broker a ceasefire deal in Gaza, and there was hope it might now focus on helping bring Russia and Ukraine to a deal. Trump and Putin met in August to discuss the war in Ukraine. And 3 days after being hit by jewel thieves, the Louvre is once again open to the public. The lineup this morning outside the museum. Meanwhile, the director of the Louvre is being questioned today by a Senate committee looking for answers on what appears to be a major security lapse. Police say thieves broke into the museum after prying open a window. They got away with more than $140 million worth of crown jewels. And as of this morning, no arrests had been made. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. And you can find more Manitoba news throughout your day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It doesn't take away from the seriousness of the crime, of course, or the gravity of it. But there's always a certain fascination just because you kind of can't even imagine something like this happening, right? It always sounds like the scene of some kind of a movie.
Yeah, like everyone's talking about the Ocean's movies.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, it was well planned. They were in and out in 4 minutes.
They pried open a window,
zooming away on motorcycles.
Do you know what I mean? Like a window, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
they had this big, they took a truck. I'll just take 1 second of your time to explain this. They took this big truck with an extended ladder to the second floor of one of the windows in the Louvre and got in that window, which just happened to be in the area where these crown jewels were being in display cases, being held there.
Yeah. It's fascinating. As I said, it doesn't take away from the seriousness of it, but wow. All right, Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
Guess we'll hear what they have to say today when they talk to the head of the Louvre. 6:35 a.m., you are with Information Radio. We're in downtown Winnipeg here on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube on CBC. It's time for our regional forecast. Abby has some chilly details.
Yeah, chilly details, Marcy, and I'm already seeing wind chills in most of the regions down south. Maybe Dauphin will not be getting wind chills, but every other part of the province will see wind chills between -3 and -5. Currently, we're still spotting that -3 at the airport and 2 degrees at the Fox. So depending on where you are in the city, your temperatures, you may notice the numbers are different on your devices this morning. Partly cloudy skies, wind chill today will be feeling like -5. It's going to be mostly cloudy, some sunny breaks in between. We then warm up to about 7 degrees later. Tonight we drop to -1. Some foggy conditions will develop overnight. In the Pembina Valley region, tracking it all the way towards the U.S. border, we're looking at -2 at this time. Also partly cloudy, the wind chill around -4, -5. We noticed some foggy conditions there. That should lift as you get into the morning. Then we'll see a cloudy day, high around 8 degrees. Brandon, towards Nipawin, we're looking at 1 at this point. There's sunshine on its way, but you need to deal with more like some cloudy conditions at this time. You warm up to 10 degrees today. In the Parkland region, Duff and Russell, all the way tracking it towards Roblin. We're seeing -1 there. Clear skies you do have. Then a mix of sun and clouds will sneak in. We'll warm up to 9 degrees later. Overnight, you'll spot some foggy conditions developing. Now, let's go into the northern part of the province, where we're looking at 2 to 4 degrees around the powerful influence. Slim chance of flurries in the forecast. You warm up to 6 degrees. Fog will also develop overnight. And then for Thompson, where we have that light snow falling at this time, the temperature still pegging at 0 for now. Along with that snow falling, there's a slim chance of showers in the afternoon for that part of the province. You warm up to 4. Churchill, you're looking at a 0 at this time. There's a slim chance of flurries also in the forecast for that part of the province. You only get to 1 today, so fog is going to be developing overnight. But the good thing is most regions will see sunshine tomorrow. That's the sunshine in the forecast, and then the weekend we should be seeing numbers like 15, 16s in the forecast,
which is crazy, right?
I know. I'm just. Maybe it's that's the sign, Marcy, that you need to do something about the rest of the plants in the garden and the hose. And
it's that little window, so it's coming next weekend.
This is the window of not sitting around, but prepare for the flurries.
Although, on Friday morning, we're all going to be on the air going, forget the chores, enjoy it, sit out in the sun.
Jack Frost is on his way, Marcy.
Can't have everything. All right, let's get into the morning commute. Corey Funk is in with some details.
Yeah, it's that time of year where you're either overdressed or underdressed and never perfectly dressed. You're either
totally
sweating or chilly. And I felt that this morning on my bike ride in. Very, very cold. You can feel that wind coming in. Though on the roads, highways, haven't heard of any major issues yet. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line if you're walking, biking, driving. I would love to hear from you. That number, 204-788-3093.
And I don't want to sound too motherly here because maybe this is an obvious thing, but I know that last night I was out for a walk and the leaves are now collecting on the streets and sidewalks. And when they're wet, they're actually really slippery. So I don't know, I almost bit it last night when I was on a pile of them. So
they're
I'll
tricky.
just mention it. Call Corey if you have any problems in traffic on the commute, 788-3093, as he mentioned. Okay, Hallie Cottenham is here with business news. Hey, Hallie.
Good morning, Marcy.
Let's talk about inflation. Yesterday we heard it jumped. Obviously, rising grocery prices, a big part of that. But you actually this morning have some analysis about who's making more money.
Yeah, we know that prices are going up, but who is to blame? Bruce Winder is a retail analyst, Marcy, with 30 years experience. He looked at 3 years of data to see who is taking a bigger cut. Is it the grocery chains like Loblaws or Empire, which runs Sobeys and Metro? Or is it the companies who make the consumer packaged goods, or CPGs, as he calls them? Companies like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, General Mills, Coke and Pepsi, Nestle, Mondelez. Winder found it's those big multinationals. They're making 2 or 3 times the profit margin, even if shoppers tend to blame the grocery store.
It's like an analogy with a goalie, right? The grocers are the last person to touch the puck. They're the last one you see, so they get all the blame. And, the thing that was probably most alarming for me was the increase in margin rate. The big 7 CPG firms increasing their gross margin by 280 basis points. That's a lot. The grocers work on a lot less margin. $14.2 for every $100 versus groceries are making $3.5 for every 100. So it's just a lopsided industry.
Winder blames consolidation in the food sector over the past 20 years, says the big 10 multinationals control 80% of the food business, meaning there's just less competition.
On the heels of last week's Stellantis decision, to another story here, General Motors is pulling the plug on a production line. We've been hearing a bit about this, but what's the latest?
Yeah, this is about its electric vehicle assembly line in Ingersoll, Ontario. Production isn't moving to a U.S. plant like Stellantis' decision to move the Jeep Compass to a plant in Illinois. This van that's made in Ontario just isn't selling. Here's GM Canada's President Christian Aquilina.
We just have not seen demand for these vehicles. This has nothing to do with tariffs or trade. It's simply a demand and a market-driven response.
But the union representing the plant's 1,200 workers believes there is a connection to the trade war. Lana Payne of Unifor says it's all about the uncertainty caused by U.S. tariffs.
The trade war is designed to surgically destroy the Canadian auto industry, and one of the ways it does that is by choking off investment. The anxiety, the stress, the not knowing, the are we next?
The local union rep says it is absolutely about geopolitics and the politicization of EV subsidies in the U.S. to boot. He says his members are devastated, Marcy, and he points out that the wider impact stretches to 17,000 jobs in the region. Now, production at the plant was paused back in May, but it was supposed to start up again next month. In fact, we just learned this morning that GM was pouring money into that plant in the past few months ahead of this decision. And another facet of the story, which brings in listeners from coast to coast, that Canadian taxpayers poured $500 million into that plant to help retool it just 3 years ago.
Let's go to another story. Speaking of shiny and new, when Apple launched its new iPhone 17 last month, I recall the initial reaction was not what they wanted. It was a little muted, but something's changed now?
Yeah, you're right. A lot of Redditors and armchair and analysts weighed in that the colors of the new phone were meh and the design ugly. A tech reviewer posted this.
Have I bought the ugliest iPhone ever? I don't know. It just looks like a complete dog's breakfast.
But it turns out the
subtle.
Yes. The people who, the regular folks who actually shell out for these phones have voted with their wallets. iPhone 17s have outsold the 16s by 14% in the US and China. And that's a very significant number, according to analysts. And it has driven Apple's share price to new highs. After a 4% jump Monday, the shares ended even higher yesterday, surpassing Apple's previous all-time high. So it's good news for the company, which analysts have said struggled to integrate AI into its phones. It's worried about the tariffs, of course. Other retail analysts, Marcy, say the sales bump may not really be about the phone at all. It's just that people who bought phones during the pandemic are finally upgrading.
Thank you, Hallie. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take care, Marcy.
That is Hallie Cottonham with our business report. 2 degrees Wednesday morning, October 22nd, and still ahead this half hour on the show. Ottawa this week announced new measures to fight financial scams and abuse. We're going to hear more about how that new plan could connect and protect all of us across the country. So stay tuned. Right now, though, let's go to some local news. As you've been hearing Heather mention, a Winnipeg high school football player is in ICU after suffering a serious neck injury. It happened during the opening kickoff Friday. He's a grade 12 student. His name's Darius Hartshorn. He plays on the offensive and defensive line for the Sisler Spartans. He's been playing with the Spartans since he was in grade 9. He's also volunteered with the North Winnipeg Nomads. That's another team out, really popular one out in North Winnipeg. Sean Esselmont is the head coach of the football team, athletic director, and the department head of phys ed over at Sisler. The CBC's Bartley Kivas got a chance to speak with him yesterday.
I myself was very much involved in the, as the injury happened and calling the ambulance and things of that nature. So pretty raw in that regard, certainly for the team as well. But we, are rallying together. We had a meeting on Monday morning with the players and the family just to connect and get all on the same page of sort of where everything is right now and then where the future is going in terms of recovery and things of that like. So on the first play of the game, it was a very shocking thing to occur on the first play of the game. I have, been coaching football since 2011. I've been playing football for much longer than that. Never in my almost 3 decades involved in the sport has something like this ever happened. It was a shorter kick. It just happenstance, bad weather, ball sort of went short. He picked it up and ran with it.
What kind of guy is he?
He is probably one of the most genuine and wonderful young men I've had the pleasure of coaching in all of my time here. He has just such a big personality. He is everyone's best friend on the team, everyone's brother, and he has just been a wonderful and joy to coach for these past 4 years. I mean, I think it's been, a bit of a moving target in terms of emotion. I think certainly, like immediately after it happened in the game, the team very much rallied around not only his brother who's on our team, but just as a team in general, and went through that game. And at every time there's an opportunity to break it down as a team, the word of the day was, "This is for Darius," and sort of that's continued on into early this week as we prepare for what comes next. Personally, it's difficult. I've said to a couple of people that the biggest thing for me right now is I'm trying to be very present for my boys on this team and this community. And I'm taking time with my family at home when I get home to, deal with it on my own. This is one of those things where I think it's an absolute freak anomaly, where you hear of them every once 5-10 years, some small town in Texas or something like that where something like this happens. It is not a regular occurrence, so there is an element of shock with that, but it is certainly not a common thing, so it's difficult to deal with in that regard. Just the outcry from both the Nomads community, our school community, our middle schools around us, the entire Winnipeg High School Football League, Jeff Bannon, Wade Miller with the Bombers. Most teams in our league have sent messages or well wishes or support. So it really speaks to that football is a big family thing, and when something like this tragic happens, we rally together as a larger family on a national level. Our plan is to wear a decal on our helmet that has the number 57 on it in honor of Darius. He is a tremendous athlete. He's someone that has been working out hard all off season, coming to our summer workouts, all that sort of stuff. He's exactly the kind of kid that you want to be part of your program. So we've been very blessed to have him.
Sean Nelson-Mont there, the head coach of the Sisler Spartans football team in Winnipeg, athletic director and department head of phys ed, in conversation with the CBC's Bartley Kivas. Now, the commissioner of the Winnipeg High School Football League, Jeffrey Bannon, also released a statement. This came out on Monday after hearing about what happened in the game. Quote, Darius is still in hospital in ICU and has begun breathing on his own, end quote. He goes on to say they're waiting for swelling to subside so they can find out the full extent of what recovery will be. And as you heard, many in the community continuing to rally around the family and also the players. I mean, the young players that are impacted by this in the entire school communities and in that part of North Winnipeg. If you want to read more about the story, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
A batter batted 600 times before bed. A soundtrack showed a shark that never showed.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
And an anti-war sitcom unintentionally became a recruiting tool.
Makes me just such a martini.
Sometimes Terry O'Reilly finds fascinating facts that don't quite fit into his show until now. Bookmarks on Under the Influence, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
Well, we're dipping below zero at the airport, -3 right now there. It's 2 in the downtown, mainly cloudy, a high today of 7. We are going to have cloud cover for most of the day. There is light snow right now up in Thompson. This is the Wednesday morning show. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC. And next, Canadians are losing hundreds of millions of dollars every year to scams. Now the federal government has announced these new measures to deal with financial fraud and abuse. So that includes a national agency to investigate and recover money from laundering, organized crime, and online scams. But will it work? What actually is in this? David Gerhardt's here to talk about it, head of the Department of Computer Science over at the University of Manitoba. Hi, David.
Morning, Marcy.
So how much of a difference do you think these new measures will help in stopping fraud? Every time I do an interview about it, we hear how difficult it is to get ahead of it.
It is tricky, and the key here with this strategy is that it is a wide national strategy that includes federal organizations as well as banks and cell phone companies and stakeholders. And so having a broad coordinated strategy, I think, is one of the key factors that should help reduce the incidence of fraud with this strategy.
A lot of the rules for banks are mostly voluntary, right? So is it enough to keep Canadians safe, or how much do we have to be, I guess, at the consumer level partners for any of this to work?
Yeah, so this new set of regulations actually does change the Banking Act a little bit, and so there are new things that the banks do have to do. But in addition to that, the banks and these new federal organizations are coordinating on a voluntary but a code of conduct to address a new kind of fraud that we're seeing, which is fraud related to personal relationships. So if you imagine a situation where a relative is taking care of an older adult and keep taking care of their finances, operating their bank on their behalf, and maybe they sort of skim a little off the top for themselves. This is fraud, and this is a new and emerging sort of area of fraud. This voluntary code of conduct is intended to be, first of all, built in coordination with the banks, and so they have an investment in it, and also to be able to sort of respond more quickly so that you don't have to sort of wait for regulations on this new idea to come into play before we can actually act on it.
And what about the idea of responsibility? How much responsibility should, the banks and the cell phone companies take when it comes to their role in protecting people from scams?
Yeah, this is always a good question because often the onus is sort of put on us as the end user, right? Don't click that link in that email, and if you do, then it's your own fault. But the reality is that, end users are not familiar with the ways in which fraud is changing, the kind of strategies that fraudsters use, and the banks are, because they have access to this massive collection of data. They see all the transactions, and they can identify the patterns that indicate that maybe there are, transactions that are illegitimate. Same with cell phone companies. When text messages come to us and they seem a little fishy, we're not quite sure. Well, the cell phone company has much better information about whether a text message is legitimate or not. And so giving the banks and cell phone companies a bit of responsibility to say, this text message, here it is, but maybe be careful with it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to keep up, as you started by saying there, with all of the different things, because you're not sort of obsessed with every piece of it until it happens to you. And then all of a sudden you might go, hang on a minute, what is this? How can AI help in this? I understand that there's a role there.
Yeah, that's right. We find that the scammers are using AI as a strategy to target, to build trust, right? To develop, new images or new videos that can establish trust between the scammer and the victim. But if the bad guys are using AI, shouldn't the good guys use AI too? And this is what we're finding, is that AI has this power of pattern recognition, right? That it can identify patterns much more broadly and much more, in connected ways that regular humans really can't. And so throwing AI at the problem means that we have an ability to identify the new strategies that fraudsters are using as they're coming out, and then develop strategies to respond to them.
For the regular person, what's key to protect yourself from a scam? I know we said that, it shouldn't all be up to us, but obviously we do have to think about some things on our own here.
Yeah, that's right. Because in the end, if you're the one who clicks the link, then you're the one whose bank account gets you get the money stolen or the information removed. The key is really what we call data hygiene. This is about being careful about your information and being aware when information is being requested that's maybe unreasonable, right? If you get asked for your social insurance number or for your home address or for your mother's maiden name, then maybe you want to be a little bit careful about that. And you put that in the context of all the other sort of regular pieces of advice that we give, which is things like, change your passwords regularly and use two-factor authentication whenever it's available, and make sure you're always contacting your institutions on legitimate channels and not on sort of, text messages or weird phone numbers. So although it should be, the responsibility of all of us to reduce this fraud, in the end, if you're the one clicking the link, then you need to, or at least it behooves you to be aware of the kind of things that might be happening.
So let me ask you some of this, because right now I know that in my life, and I'm sure in a lot of people's lives, whenever there's some kind of an upgrade done, then I have to upgrade my security. And sometimes I have a question about, okay, hang on, what's the best way to go about it? Facial recognition versus two-step verification, as annoying as it is, those numbers that come up constantly, versus changing your password, I don't know, once a month. I'm not sure what the going advice is. What keeps us safest? I mean, obviously all three, but is one of those sort of, the top of the line for the best protection?
Yeah, so two-factor authentication means two different things that you're doing. So a password and a face scan, or one of those numbers and a text message. Two different ways to confirm that you are who you say you are. And that's definitely the best way to make sure that these things are secure, because then if one channel gets compromised, the other channel is maintained, right? So passwords are a terrible way to maintain systems, but they're sort of what we came up with first, and they're universal. But passwords are hacked all the time and are easy to break. And so if you combine a password with something else, then the password is sort of step one, and the face scan or the thumbprint or whatever is step two. And that's why we call it two-factor authentication. So that's definitely the best way to keep secure.
I mean, if you are in a site that you use regularly and it doesn't seem to have that, are there times where you can request that? Or should you ask whether or not they have it, and maybe they just haven't automatically signed you up for it, for example?
Yeah, this is a really difficult question, because sometimes, it's expensive to implement two-factor authentication, because the company then has to have, security people and protocols to maintain these different ways of doing things. If they don't, then changing your password regularly is the key. And using a password that is long and complicated and difficult to guess, which is frustrating, but there are password protection systems on most computers these days that will pick a password for you and then save it for you so that you don't have to remember it the next time.
I think so. A lot of people just avoid the whole password keeper thing because it feels like if I'm going to keep my passwords all in one place, and that gets hacked, isn't that going to defy my, security? Isn't that going to cancel everything out? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, well, the expectation is that the password keeper is more secure than your regular passwords would be. And it is, because it's on your computer, right? The passwords that you use in the world are out in the world somewhere, and they can get stolen from you or from the other side, right? The password keeper is yours. It's on your computer. It's secured by your own whatever security protocols you want to use. And so it is a bit more secure. And it does allow you to have more reliability with different passwords on every system, right? This is the other thing that people will sometimes do is just use the same password for a lot of different sites because it's easier to remember. But then if it gets hacked in one place, then it's compromised in the other place as well. So these password keepers are definitely a positive way to increase security.
All right. Thanks a lot, David. Appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
That's David Gerhardt. He's the head of the Department of Computer Science over at the University of Manitoba, and that is where we reached him. It's 3 minutes to 7 o'clock. Heather Wells is here. We reached her in our news center with developing news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the number of children in care in Manitoba is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year. That's about 3% more than the year before. It is being called a huge loss for a Northern Manitoba First Nation. The longtime fire chief at Pimachikamak Cree Nation, Raymond McKay, has died. MKO, the Northern Chiefs Group, says McKay was instrumental in keeping the community safe during wildfire evacuations this past summer. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
On the commute, if you need us, 788-3093. Pretty good this Wednesday so far. If you are walking or standing at the bus stop, you're going to have layers on today. It's 2 degrees. It's -3 at the airport. That's Winnipeg. It's going to be cloudy for the day. Our high just 7. Brandon cloudy at 1 right now. Thompson light snow and 0. In the next hour of Information Radio, Canadian snowbirds flock to warmer parts of the United States every year to escape the cold. But that's not going to happen for one Manitoban who sold his Florida home after 14 years. He blames Donald Trump for that decision. But he's going to weigh in now on something that has come up in the news this week, which is photographs and fingerprinting at the border for data collection purposes, they're saying. So we're going to talk more about that. In addition, at 20 to 8 this morning, a rescued lynx has found a new home at the Assiniboine Park Zoo. We'll follow up on that. And the president of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress in Manitoba is questioning safety in schools after a second teen was allegedly assaulted in a school bathroom at a high school. We'll have this conversation with an expert in school-based violence. She's looked at what works across this country and what doesn't to protect all the kids. Stay tuned.
Today on The Current.
We're telling the cartels right now, we're going to be stopping them too. When they come by land, we're going to be stopping them the same way we stop the boats.
As the U.S. refocuses its attention on Latin America, we look at shifting politics across the region and the reality of the illicit drug trade that's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Prime Minister Mark Carney addresses Canadians tonight. Carney will be delivering a primetime speech from Ottawa. It is expected to be a preview of the federal budget, which drops on November 4th. The speech is supposed to prepare Canadians for some difficult choices ahead. It will also be an attempt to convince the other parties to push through Carney's minority government's fiscal roadmap. The CBC's Janice McGregor joins me now from Ottawa. And Janice, how is Carney going to get this through a minority parliament?
Marcia, Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon yesterday was criticizing the opposition for not being realistic and making what he called ludicrous demands.
And when I see opposition parties not ruling out the possibility of voting for the budget, that's starting to worry me.
It was no surprise to see the Conservative leader call for tax cuts Monday. And, Mark Carney hasn't ruled out targeted tax measures, although Liberals and Conservatives aren't really looking at the same things. But Pierre Poilievre's demand to hold the budget deficit to $42 billion at a time when the Liberals are rolling out ambitious plans for defense spending, energy infrastructure, housing, that's the demand that seems most certain to be ignored, as is the list of demands the Bloc Québécois laid out last week, including 6 non-negotiable priorities that include more unconditional provincial transfers and a renewal of their demand to increase seniors' pensions. The NDP, though, has been far less specific so far. Its interim leader, Don Davies, yesterday denied that he's negotiating to leverage their 7 votes.
Well, those reports are 100% false, categorically untrue. There's been no discussions whatsoever with the government about exchanging anything with the government for our support for the budget. So it's simply not true.
Instead, New Democrats say they're going to wait and analyze a budget when they see it. Liberals are so close to having a majority, however, that a few strategic absences or abstentions may be all it takes to get this initial budget approved and, of course, avoid an election.
Would anyone want an election right now?
Well, look, Poilievre's in a much weaker position than he was a year ago. He no longer rides high in the polls. He's facing a leadership review from his party early next year. And our colleagues at Radio Canada this morning are reporting he may be in for a rough caucus meeting because MPs are increasingly concerned that Poilievre looks too much like someone obsessed with fighting old battles from the Trudeau era. The Bloc Québécois has activists that at the moment are much more focused on helping the Parti Québécois win power in the upcoming Quebec election. And New Democrats are unlikely to want to fight another campaign before picking a new leader. The Canadian Labour Congress hosting a forum tonight for the 5 candidates approved to run in that race. Party members, though, don't vote until March.
Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. In an hour from now, the International Court of Justice will deliver a landmark opinion. A panel of judges will make a statement on Israel's legal obligation toward UN operations in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. They were asked to weigh in on the issue last year after Israel blocked aid to Gaza. Lauren Comato has more from The Hague.
The UN and most of the some 40 countries that appeared during hearings here earlier this year argue that Israel's actions, both as an occupying power and a UN member, violated international law. Israel, which didn't take part in the proceedings, maintained it's allowed to block aid that it says Hamas seizes. It also accused the UN of weaponizing international law. This court has ordered Israel to let aid into Gaza before, and while Israel has a history of not abiding by the court's rulings, Utrecht University's legal historian Eva Vukasic says even though these opinions are not binding, they are still significant because other countries listen to them.
I wouldn't say that it's irrelevant. Even if it doesn't change something on the ground the next day, this establishment of law and confirmation of principle and to exert pressure matters in ways that are not always directly observable.
The IPC, the world's leading authority on food crises, declared a famine in Gaza City earlier this year. Aid has been spotty since the fragile ceasefire came into effect on October 10th. Lauren Comato for CBC News, The Hague.
In Paris, people line up outside the Louvre early this morning. The museum is reopening 3 days after it was robbed. Officials say thieves pried open a window and stole French crown jewels from the Apollo Gallery. That part of the museum is closed to the public. So far, there have been no arrests in the heist. The stolen jewels have an estimated value of more than $142 million Canadian. The director of the Louvre will be questioned by France's Senate Culture Committee today. She will be asked about security at the museum. The demolition of much of the east wing of the White House has been completed. It is all to build U.S. President Donald Trump's new ballroom. The project is expected to cost more than $350 million Canadian, but some accuse the Trump administration of overreaching. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. And Willie, what can you tell us about this project?
So the project is the fulfillment of a long-held dream of President Donald Trump's to build a ballroom that befits a president at the White House. It's going to be big, really big. The White House says it will be 90,000 square feet with room for over 600 people. And the price tag is pretty big, too. $200 million US. Trump insists that it won't cost taxpayers a penny, and much of the money is coming from private donors.
Putting up our own money with the government is paying for nothing. You probably hear the beautiful sound of construction to the back. You hear that sound? Oh, that's music to my ears. I love that sound. Other people don't like it. I love it.
Some have accused the White House of allowing donors to buy access, and the White House initially said that there would be no structural changes to the existing building. But that appears not to be the case. Photos obtained by the Washington Post show much of the East Wing being demolished.
Not everyone is happy about this, Willie. What are the critics saying?
There is concern among historians that the East Wing, home to the First Lady's office, may be irrevocably changed. There is also fear that the ballroom will dwarf the existing White House. It's expected to be nearly 35,000 square feet larger than the current building. Former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton, who lived in the building from 1993 to 2001, expressed outrage on social media. She said, quote, "It's not his house, it's your house, and he's destroying it." The National Trust for Historic Preservation, an organization charged with advancing historic preservation in the U.S., urged the White House to pause construction so plans could be properly reviewed. The Trump administration has dismissed concerns, calling it, quote, manufactured outrage.
All right. Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. 2 new reports on last year's wildfire in Jasper, Alberta confirm it was caused by lightning. They conclude dry conditions and tornado force winds hit 200 kilometers an hour to fuel the fire. It started as 3 separate incidents before merging into one. That fire destroyed a third of the town's buildings in July of 2024. Some 25,000 residents and visitors were forced to leave the community. Members of Saskatchewan's legislature are back at work today. The government will deliver its throne speech as it opens the fall session. A lot has happened since the MLAs last met in late May. But one of the biggest issues facing Premier Scott Moe's government are tariffs on canola. The CBC's Alexander Kwan has more.
What we've heard from him is talk out of both sides of his mouth.
Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck has wasted no time taking aim at Premier Scott Moe over canola tariffs, setting the stage for the return of Saskatchewan politicians to the legislature later this morning. It will be the first sitting in 160 days. Charles Smith is a professor of political studies at the University of Saskatchewan. He says the government may have had a long break, but it will now have to grapple with familiar issues.
I think what will dominate this session, is kind of the things that we've been talking about over the last year, right, ever since the Trump administration came into power and sort of upended the Canadian economy.
A key focus will be China's punishing duty on canola products, which caused the province's exports to China in August to drop by 76% compared to the same time last year. Premier Scott Moe says the federal government must offer support.
We want access to all markets, but we need to understand and we need to work with the federal government on, how we are actually going to achieve that.
Beck is arguing the Premier has backed away from calling for an end to Canada's tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, something widely seen as the cause for China's duty on canola, making it the likely focus of the throne speech. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCNews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Morning, Manitoba. How you doing out there? Wednesday morning. It is October 22nd, and it's a little chilly. We also have light rain up in Lynn Lake, but in Winnipeg at the airport, it's -2. Thanks for joining us. This is your morning show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on the CBC YouTube channel. Well, this hour on the program, Canadian snowbirds flock to warmer parts of the U.S. every year to escape the cold, but that's not going to happen for a Manitoban who says he sold his Florida home after 14 years. We're going to talk to him more about that decision and about what it's like for him this fall. In addition, a rescued lynx has found a new home at the Assiniboine Park Zoo. We're going to hear from Wildlife Haven. They've been there through the treatment and recovery of the animal. And then a follow to a couple of news stories we've had on. We're going to talk to an expert who researches school-based violence in Canada. She says anti-bullying policies are highly ineffective. This comes after we learned another Ukrainian teenager was allegedly attacked at Oak Park High School a day before the first incident that we reported on. So that's now 2 young people. And we have charges being faced, three teenagers facing charges in 2 separate incidents, according to Winnipeg Police. So that is coming up. We're going to have an analysis of what's going on with school-based violence. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells. She's in our news center with updates on other stories.
Good morning. A new development is coming to a long, empty plot of land in St. Boniface. Shindeco has acquired more than 14 acres of land in the St. Boniface Industrial Park and will work in partnership with Alexa Developments. The site will have a mix of industrial, retail, parks, and housing, and it is near Marion and Archibald. Once was the home of the Union Stockyards and Canada Packers meatpacking plant. So we'll hear a little bit more about that development coming up. And the Sisler Spartans will have Darius Hartshorn in their hearts and on their helmets next time they take to the field. The grade 12 student suffered life-changing injuries in a game last week. Sisler's head coach says the team's teammates will wear decals with his number 57 on their helmets when they open playoffs tomorrow night. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And Heather's top headline there, we actually are going to have a conversation with developer Sandy Schindelman live here on Information Radio after 8 about that big development in St. B. It's been talked about for years. Right now, let's get to what's happening in the weather forecast with some more details. Here's Abby Adiemi.
Good morning. It's getting chilly. You will notice the wind chill as you step out this morning. A cool midweek day out. Tell you, cloudy skies we woke up to this morning. Some regions saw some fog patches and a touch of, that morning chill. But the sun will make its appearance. Sunny breaks through the day later. Winnipeg right now, we're still sporting -2 at the airport and 2 degrees in most regions, most areas downtown. But with the wind chill factored in, it's feeling already like -5 outside this morning. The skies will stay mostly cloudy through the day. We're going to see light winds coming from the west and our highs are near 7 degrees. You will notice some sunny breaks in between that, and then later tonight we'll see fog patches develop overnight, dropping to -1. In the southern region, similar condition. We're seeing temperatures near 0 with some light wind chill also in most of the regions, warming up to 7 degrees. While up north, we're seeing temperatures between 1 and 2 in Churchill at this time, and Thompson is still trying to hover between 1 and 0. But across board, it's a chilly start. We're looking at 2 degrees at the Forks, -1 at the airport, and it's going to be a chilly day.
More leaves are going to fall today for
More
sure.
leaves, Marcy.
All right. Thanks, Abby. The morning commute.
Quiet commute overall. Haven't heard of any major issues yet, but if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the program, if you're traveling to the U.S. for more than 30 days, you may be photographed and fingerprinted at the border for data collection purposes. Now, that's not brand new. We first learned of that procedure back in April when U.S. President Donald Trump ordered all foreign visitors to register with the U.S. government. But it is new for Canadians going through the process this year, especially if you're a snowbird and you're going to make your way down south to escape the winter season for a length of time. Brian Jameson used to do that. He's a Manitoba snowbird, or he was for years. He lives in Brandon. He's been going to Florida every winter for 14 years. He joined us back in April to talk about why he made the decision to sell his seasonal home there. He says this winter will be his first one spent at home here in Manitoba in over a decade. So we thought we'd check in with him again. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
So I know when we first talked, you shared what a difficult decision this was to sell your home in Florida. Tell me a little bit more about why you're choosing not to return to the States this winter.
Well, we're choosing not to return to the States due to the fact that we're essentially in, I guess you would call it an economic war with the U.S. And we just chose to spend our money in Canada as Canadians rather than give it to a regime that we don't necessarily agree with at all.
How have you wavered since we talked in April? I mean, now it was a hard decision as you explained, but now we're getting into those winter months.
Yeah, it's still a hard decision. It still was a hard decision. we have a lot of friends down in the U.S., and we are very sorry not to be able to see them this winter, but they understand due to the circumstances, and we're going to be returning to our roots and wintering in Canada.
So I was going to ask you if you looked, eyed up another place that's warmer in the winter to escape to, but you're going to stick it out here?
Yes, we've been looking out on our west coast and on our east coast, but haven't really found anything much yet. Well, actually, there is a lot, but not within the time ranges that we would like to spend away from our central Canadian cold weather.
Yeah, it's hard in this country, right, to find somewhere that's going to be much warmer than Manitoba earlier, right, to make it worth it.
Yes, and the older you get, I didn't believe it when I was younger, but it does get harder to spend cold winters here in central Canada.
What do you think about the registration requirement, as I mentioned, for foreign travelers? Have you heard about people that have gone through this then, being fingerprinted, for example?
I've heard just a couple of stories about that. I haven't, gone the lengths to actually confirm those, but I'm guessing that it's in place at some of the crossings, and I've been told it's at the discretion of some of the border guards as well. So I don't really understand why they would be insisting on that, but I guess it's their prerogative to do so.
It's one thing to sell your home. I mean, obviously that's the big decision, but I'm curious whether or not you're even traveling to the States right now.
No. We like I say, our money stays in Canada. It stays primarily in Manitoba or in Ontario, and that's we haven't even considered traveling at all, except possibly down east to Niagara Falls, where friends from the U.S. would drive up into Niagara Falls to meet us there. But that's about it.
What have you heard from, if anything, from other Canadian snowbirds about their plan this winter? Have other folks, sold or been still considering selling maybe?
Yes, there are friends of ours that are considering selling, and I feel very bad for them because they had just bought recently. And there are friends. There was a lot of friends from our park where we were in Florida who have sold, and the park has there is essentially very few Canadians, I believe, left in that park.
What was the process like about selling your home? Did it go quickly, or how did that work for you?
No, it didn't go quickly. And essentially everybody was taking quite a loss on it. At the time, the park was under new ownership, and the rents increased, by maybe just over 100% in the space of 3 years' time.
Wow. Okay.
So that angered a lot of people, including our American friends too. So that's when the sales started, and then after the election in the U.S. last November, that kind of put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. And we practically, to a person, Canadians, decided to sell and leave.
Can you imagine a day? I just want to interject here because I'm just curious. Can you imagine a day when you might go back to the U.S.? Like you've talked about your convictions, so I'm just wondering what it would take for you to feel comfortable going back to that country.
Well, it would take a change in the government, and it would take a change in their policies towards Canada. So.
Brian, thank you very much. I hope you land somewhere warm, if not for a property for a visit this winter. Appreciate having you on again.
Okay. Yes, we are going up to like Elkhorn Resort in Clear Lake in the White. Yeah, like in Clear Lake.
All right. Manitoba made getaway. Everyone's supporting those.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing.
You take care. Thank you.
Okay.
That sounds nice right now, escaping to a resort, maybe a little hot tubbing on a day that's dipping below zero. That's Brian Jameson. He's a Manitoba snowbird. We want to do a follow-up conversation with him now that the weather's turning. He sold his home in Florida this spring. He will now spend the winter here, as you heard, in southern Manitoba.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
7:22 a.m. and still ahead, the president of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, Manitoba, is questioning safety in schools after a second Ukrainian teen was allegedly assaulted in a school bathroom.
These people have chosen friendly Manitoba, and here it is, in a high school. I think we all have been taught home was the safest, school was the next safest. Now, is that true?
Should clarify, a second newcomer Ukrainian teen allegedly assaulted. Obviously, that's why she's weighing in, looking at that from the newcomer perspective. She's been settling some 30,000 Ukrainians here, and part of it, the team helping to do that. But we're going to continue the conversation looking at school-based violence coming up in the next half hour. What works and what does not work across this country to protect kids in schools? And so that's coming up just before 8 o'clock. Right now, we have a bit of music from Winnipeg's Boy Golden. Boy Golden set to release a new album called Best of Our Possible Lives in February, but the first single's described as an artful indie rock and roll tune with a State of the Nation address. It's fun and cathartic. He's also going to be heading out on tour across Canada with William Prince this spring. That ends with a show at the Centennial Concert Hall in April. As you can hear, we're just teeing up Boy Golden. This tune's called Suffer.
Every day is a masterpiece laid out on the street in front of me. Every day another tragedy laid out on the street in front of me. Prices go up and they don't come down. Cost $40 just to hang around. I know people sleeping on the ground. Prices go up and they don't come down. I wanna know where my money went. I want a new president. Wanna believe that God is benevolent. I wanna know where my money went. Yeah. We all suffer under the cover of the night. Under the cover of the night. We all suffer. Yeah. Painkillers and nicotine, white bread and trashy TV. You can drink yourself half asleep. Just don't do it in front of me. Bad actors in politics. I can't take too much more of this. I'm looking for a more permanent fix, like a deep dark hole in a ditch. We sit in our living rooms and become what we consume. There's nothing old and nothing new, just whatever's in front of you. Yeah. We all suffer
A little bit of Boy Golden, a little bit of a preview for you this morning. That tune's called Suffer. It is the single off the new album, Best of Our Possible Lives. It is coming out in February. And as I mentioned, just this other announcement about him yesterday, coming out that he will head on tour across Canada with William Prince this spring as well. It is time to talk about sports. 2 more sleeps till the World Series. And Scott Regehr joins us. Good morning.
Full disclosure, in the script I had written 3 more sleeps. I got my math wrong, which I'm just going to call a product of sleep deprivation because all of this late night baseball.
Because you haven't been
thanks
sleeping?
for correcting it. Yeah, no, because I haven't. Of course I haven't. You get wound up. Even if you go to bed at midnight, you still don't sleep, right?
You're welcome. I caught that one.
Thank you. That was well done.
Mostly because I'm excited. So what's the latest ahead of the matchup between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays matchup coming on Friday?
Well, Shohei Ohtani and company, Marcy, are boarding a plane to Toronto today, and actually boarding a plane. If you followed Ohtani's free agent links to the Jays in the past, you know that's always a question. Is he on or not? Really, though, the Dodger with the closest ties to Toronto is Freddie Freeman. Both of the star first baseman's parents are from Ontario.
Every time I go there, it just kind of, you just have this like feeling inside that you feel just a little bit closer to my mom. I always get this little envelope in my locker, and it's always like pictures of like third cousin has found photos in their garage and they bring them to me. So I love going back to Toronto. It's a special place for obviously my family and I. And every time I go back there, I feel a little bit closer to my mom. So I'm looking forward to getting there.
Freeman's mom, Rosemary Marcy, died of melanoma when he was just 10 years old, and that's why you see him wearing those long sleeve shirts under his jersey at all times. Although Freeman's considered one of the gentlemen of the sport, he's repped Canada at the World Baseball Classic in the past. There are questions about how he'll be received by Jays fans. After all, they booed native son Josh Naylor of the Mariners mercilessly in the previous series. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts was asked about it.
I'm just a little confused why, where he praises his country of birth and, has played for the Team Canada. He's a heck of a player, person, even better person. But, I don't know what the Blue Jays fans have in store for him, but I don't think he'll be fazed by it.
Freeman and the Dodgers looking to become the first team, Marcy, to win back-to-back World Series in quarter a century. The Jays, of course, looking to win their first championship in even longer than that. And it all starts in 2 days. Okay, Friday. Yeah, that's the one.
Let's move over to some controversial news, actually. This is Olympic news.
Yeah, so this involves the possibility, Marcy, of Russian bobsledders and skeleton athletes being able to compete at the next games in Cortina. The governing body for those sports has thrown out part of its own ruling banning sliders from that country from its competitions. Now Russian bobsled and skeleton officials say they expect to compete immediately. That does not sit well with Ukraine's top Olympic sliding contender, Vladislav Herskevich. The 4th-place finisher at the last Skeleton Worlds, Herskevich says he wouldn't feel safe competing alongside Russian athletes and would wonder whether they were part of the war effort.
It's much more important than any medals and any competitions and any achievement because people are suffering a lot. To understand scale of tragedy, we lost our friends, we lost our classmates, we lost our family members. I want to have normal life. I want to have people good future. I want cities to be not destroyed.
There is some confusion, Marcia, about what happens next with sliding season beginning next month. Even if Russians are allowed to compete, it's unclear how many would have a realistic chance of qualifying for the Olympic field. And then there are questions about whether they've taken the necessary doping tests.
Let's finish with basketball. The NBA season's just getting started.
Yes, for the Raptors, it goes tonight in Atlanta against the Hawks. Coach Darko Rajakovic was asked about expectations.
It's going to be a lot of learning. It's going to be opportunity to compete. It's an opportunity to learn how to win. We got to look at the season as a whole. There's going to be great stretches. There's going to be rough stretches. But what I see from so far from our group is they're really connected and really willing to accept coaching and learning from each other. So that's what really excites me about this season.
Code for the rebuild continues. Raptors and Hawks tonight.
Fair enough. All right. Thanks, Scott.
You bet. Scott
Regehr with Morning Sports. We're going to check in on Wildlife Haven and the links that they are helping right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, a day without rain, but it will have a bit of a chill in the air when you step outside. We are right now at 2 degrees downtown, -2 out at the airport, and there is a wind chill this morning. Today's high, cool but seasonal, a high of 7. The number of children in care in Manitoba is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year. That's about 250 more than the year before. It is the first notable rise since before the pandemic, and it is despite legislative amendments that came in last year. The amendments designed to place more youth with family in kinship arrangements. Jamie Fow is president at the Manitoba Foster Parent Association.
Not surprised, but just disappointed and maybe more and more heartbroken. Regardless of what is passed in the legislative area of child welfare, it is very slow to trickle down to the actual boots on the ground practice level.
The report suggests 42 youth were in kinship care as of March. The province says the hope is the new policies will bring the number of kids in care down. A northern Manitoba First Nation is mourning the sudden death of their longtime fire chief. Manitoba Kiwetinawi Okamakinak announced yesterday Pimachikamak Cree Nation Fire Chief Raymond McKay has died. The Northern Chiefs Group says McKay was instrumental in keeping the community safe during wildfire evacuations this summer. Pimachikamak Chief David Monias says it is a huge loss for the community.
Because we all knew him, and it's hard to replace somebody that you know so well who's done the job for such a long time, and you had a relationship with as a friend or a family. It's hard to even start to comprehend that we need to do that.
Monias says a cause of death has not yet been confirmed. MKO says plans will soon be released about an upcoming memorial service. A Winnipeg high school football team is rallying around a teammate who sustained life-changing injuries in a game last week. Darius Hartshorn suffered injuries to his neck and spine after fielding the opening kickoff Friday night for the Sisler Spartans. Sean Esselmont is the head coach and athletic director at Sisler. He says the grade 12 student is one of the most genuine, wonderful young men he has ever had the pleasure of coaching.
He's just the guy that's always making everybody laugh. Like he's always, says something funny or makes a joke or makes light of things in a time when you really need it to be lighter than it is. I think we all wish you could be here to, make things a little bit lighter today. But he is certainly just that joy that spark plugs an entire team.
With Hartshorn still in hospital, Esselmont says his teammates will wear decals with his number 57 on their helmets in their next game tomorrow night. Big plans for a long, empty plot of land in St. Boniface.
The Water Tower District is the former Canada Packer site, located at the southeast.
Shindico's Robert Scaletta on YouTube yesterday announcing it has acquired more than 14 acres or 5 hectares of land in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. The site will have a mix of industrial, retail, parks, and housing. Shindico says construction on the multifamily housing units will begin next year. The site near Marion and Archibald was home of the Union Stockyards and Canada Packers meat packing plant, which was demolished almost 25 years ago. The Prime Minister's office calls it a budget preview. Mark Carney will deliver a live address tonight from Ottawa as his government puts the final touches on what will be his first budget as Prime Minister. It's set to be tabled November 4th. Meanwhile, another fiscal analysis has been released suggesting the federal deficit will be significantly larger than expected. The Desjardins Financial Group says it could top $74 billion. That is about $6 billion more than the parliamentary budget officer has been projecting. A meeting is on hold between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin. Trump says he doesn't want the meeting to be, quote, a waste of time. The two leaders were going to meet in Budapest in the coming weeks. Now the White House says there are no plans for such a meeting. Meanwhile, both Ukraine and Russia launched more strikes overnight. Ukraine's president accuses Moscow of attacking residential buildings in several major cities. Volodymyr Zelensky says at least 6 people were killed. 2 new reports on last year's wildfire in Jasper, Alberta confirm it was caused by lightning. They conclude dry conditions and tornado-force winds hit 200 kilometers an hour to fuel the fire. It started as 3 separate incidents before merging into one, and that fire destroyed a third of the town's buildings in July of 2024. It forced more than 25,000 people to flee the town of Jasper. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
With a quick look at the weather, here's Abby.
We're looking at mostly cloudy skies with fog patches clearing this morning. Winnipeg, we are at 2 degrees. We're heading to a high of 7 across board. The south is hovering between 0 and 1, and we see temperatures close to 10 degrees in some areas. Up north, we're going to see temperatures warm up to about 1 in Churchill and 7 in a Thompson area.
Corey, what's the commute like?
Westbound Dugald, just past Plessis. There's a stall blocking that westbound median lane on Dugald, just past the intersection. So keep right to get around that. That's according to Winnipeg's Traffic Management Center. Other than that, though, if you see anything else going on, if you have an update on that or anything else you're seeing out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, whether you're walking, biking, driving, 204-788-3093.
Still ahead, we're going to build on a story you might have heard in the news about Shindico being a step closer to developing their part of the old Canada Packers site. We will have Sandy Schindelman from Shindico on live on CBC right after 8 o'clock to hear more about that. Right now, let's turn our attention to a lynx. After months of treatment and recovery, a baby lynx is headed to a new home. Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre took in the animal in September. It's the first lynx the centre has taken into its care, but now it's going to go live at the Assiniboine Park Zoo. Zoe Nakat is here with an update, Executive Director of Wildlife Haven. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So tell me more about the condition this little lynx was in when she showed up. She had an eye problem, right?
That's correct, yeah. So she came in very young, orphaned, should have been with her mom, but unfortunately, locals tell us that the mom was killed by dogs, and that this baby lynx was also attacked by a pack of wild dogs. So she came in, starving, she hadn't had food, and she had this eye injury. So our team did an excellent job. We were able to stabilize her and start that treatment on the eye. And so she's been getting stronger. She's been getting, more comfortable in her environment, more curious, which is all really good signs. But unfortunately, that eye injury has just progressed.
Is she losing the eye or blind in the eye, or what's going to go on? Do we know?
So at this time, we know that there's permanent scarring and there is some cataracts forming. There's still some discussions between, are we going to operate to remove the eye, or is, ongoing treatment the best option? And we're in conversations with the team at Assiniboine Park Zoo to figure out what's best for her welfare and long-term health.
Where'd she
come?
That
hasn't been determined.
Sorry to interject there. Where did she come from, Zoe? Like what part of the province?
So Swan River Conservation Area, so north of Brandon.
Okay. What's it been like to care for her? I mean, people are seeing the pictures on YouTube, and I mean, she's a little cutie patootie floofball, and anyone that has cats, it's hard not to see a cat as a cat as a cat, right? Look at those paws.
Yeah. It's been a delight for our team, right? Like, we all have such a passion for these wild animals, and knowing that she, faced all, against all odds, survived, and some folks picked her up and got to Wildlife Haven, like, just that is just such a feat already. So the fact that we were able to nurse her back to health has been, we feel very privileged to be part of her journey, and a really good challenge for our team, making sure that she has the right food, the right medications, and the right enrichment to make sure that every day she has a chance to learn how to jump and scratch and climb and do all the things that a lynx should do. So we feel quite privileged to have been part of her journey.
No doubt. There's just a picture that passed. She's sitting on one of those classic sort of scratch pad things.
Yep.
How big is she right now? Like, how many pounds, or physically, how big is she?
Oh my gosh, I don't have the pounds on me, but she grew quite a bit. So I'd say she's the size of like a medium dog by now. So she grew very quickly. Yeah.
Is it because of the eye and what's going to happen with that permanent injury that you feel the Assiniboine Park Zoo is going to be the best place for her?
Yes, exactly. So, at Wildlife Haven, we treat thousands of animals every year, and our goal is always to release to the wild, but we need to do that responsibly and ethically. So there are some thresholds that we have for each species to know to what degree will the animal have, a good chance at life and survival out in the wild. And with lynx, it was very difficult because there's not a lot of data, but there's a lot of things that we do know. We do know that they're nocturnal hunters. We do know that they use their eyesight for, prey stalking and all these things. And we were able to consult with experts across Canada to make sure that we were, considering the right things. And so with that site affected. We just can't release her back to the wild and expect her to have a normal wildlife.
When's she heading to the zoo, and how are you getting her there?
Yeah, so it'll be probably sometime next week. We're still in talks with their team. And the really nice thing is that the transfer will be pretty seamless. Wildlife Haven works with the Assiniboine Park Zoo on a regular basis, whether it's with our patients or to consult on cases. So their vet team already knows about her. They've been giving us advice and vice versa for several weeks already. So, she's small enough. We're going to put her in a dog kennel, drive her in our car, and send her over to our friends at Assiniboine Park Zoo, and there she'll, of course, need some quarantine and ongoing treatment on that eye, which we will still be involved in to some degree. So we're expecting a quite a seamless transfer, which feels good for our team, certainly.
Oh, she's hard not to fall in love with in the pictures. I know she's been a bit of a social media star. She's popped up in my threads. Thanks very much for being with us, Zoe, for the update.
Okay, thanks for your interest.
That's Zoe Nakata, the Executive Director of Wildlife Haven Rehabilitation Centre, talking about this lynx that was in their care. This is the first lynx the centre has taken into its care, and because of its injuries, which will be not sustained, well, the injury won't be sustained, it'll improve. However, the lynx won't be suitable to return to the wild, so because of that, the lynx will head over to the Assiniboine Park Zoo.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
2 degrees in Winnipeg and a high today of 7 degrees. Coming up after 8 o'clock, hope for Huntington's. There has been a potential breakthrough in the treatment of Huntington's disease. We're going to hear from a Winnipeg family that is impacted by Huntington's. Right now, though, a Ukrainian mother, as we've been reporting, says she's concerned about safety in schools after her 14-year-old daughter was assaulted by several teenage girls, allegedly, in her high school washroom at Oak Park High School. We're not naming the mother to protect the daughter's identity.
I saw my daughter in a shock. One friend was with her. She had a scratch on her face, on her back, big bruise on her forehead, big bruise, swollen bruise on her right leg, one more bruise on her left leg.
On Monday, as a follow to this story, we learned more charges had been laid after another Ukrainian teen was assaulted at school. The girl's mother says her daughter was told about another assault which took place the day before involving another Ukrainian newcomer. Pembina Trails School Division has confirmed the second incident. Winnipeg police say 3 girls are facing charges in relation to 2 separate attacks at the same school. Here's how the mother of that first alleged victim reacted to the second.
I was shocked. It's not supposed to be like this, absolutely. And I'm so sorry that other Ukrainian family go through, because I totally understand that this is so hard. So, for example, for me, I didn't sleep at all last 2 weeks. We are under stress.
To talk about the bigger picture and where we're at with school-based violence and bullying in this country, I spoke with Tracy Viancourt after the show yesterday. She's listened to those clips, as you'll hear. She's the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention.
Good morning.
So you're listening to this. Obviously, we have now, allegedly 2 assaults, 2 different young girls. What's your initial reaction to this?
It's a little bit shocking. I mean, I've been studying violence for 25 years, so not much shocks me. But what's a little bit unique about this situation is that you have girls attacking girls in a physical way. It's not to say that it never exists, but girls tend to be a bit more sophisticated in their use of aggression. They'll spread rumors, they'll exclude somebody from the peer group. They typically don't use physical violence.
How common, do we know how common overall violence is in any form among teen girls?
It'd be less than 1% of the population would use it. It's very rare for girls to use physical violence. Again, it seems a little bit, there'll be some viewers who will say that doesn't comport with what their view is because they can think of an event or a person who's done it, but it's just the saliency of it that's going to make it vivid in their recollection. The truth of the matter is, again, I've studied this for 25 years. We don't see girls doing this too often.
In terms of what you do see, is there an escalation in students overall, like in boys, with violence in schools? What's the distinction there? I'm just trying to look at the compare.
Yeah, so boys use this mixture, a mélange of different modes of aggressing against others. So they'll call names, they'll use indirect aggression, of course, they'll spread rumors and exclude from the peer group, and they'll use physical aggression as well. Most adolescent boys curtail their use of physical aggression. So it's a sort of thing that peaks in early childhood and then comes down precipitously after that. There's some adolescent boys who are life course persistent in their use of physical aggression. That represents about 10% of kids who were aggressive to begin with. So for the most part, we don't have teenagers around our country using physical violence against each other. I know it's going to sound a little bit odd to a lot of viewers because we see it in the media a lot. Again, these are very salient experiences, so they tend to be something we recall quite easily, but the data don't support that this is something that is done often by teenage boys and definitely not by teenage girls.
Do you know from your research what would lead either a teenage boy or a girl to go from, as you described, for a verbal attack, for example, to escalating to choose some physical violence?
So I think in the case of the girls attacking the two Ukrainian girls, I would bet that it probably has to do with some kind of a perception of a reputation violation, and or intersexual competition, because those are usually the reasons why girls would be physically aggressive towards another girl, which means that they think that she said something bad about them and they're defending their honor in a sense, or they're interested in the same person romantically. And it's kind of like, it feels a bit yucky to kind of say this because you would think that we would be a little bit more complicated than this, but the truth of the matter is that's really what drives girls and women's physical aggression. For boys, it's a little bit more varied, but certainly reputation attacks get there. Intersexual competition are part of it. Some of it is bravado and the like. The other unique component of this, well, it's not unique. It's actually what we tend to see. When girls do use aggression in this manner, it tends to be in a cluster with other girls. So they don't do this sort of thing in isolation. They do it with other girls. And then they're in a way, there's this thing called de-individuation. So when you have a lot of other peers present, your role in the event tends to be less thoughtful. You, in a sense, think you're anonymous. You don't think about the repercussions of your behavior. So groups for teenagers are really bad for their appraisal of risk and the like. So it doesn't surprise me that there's other girls present.
Speaking of others who were present in this case, the first case, we understand the incident was filmed by a bystander in the washroom stall. What questions go through your mind about that person, or what should we understand about that dynamic?
This bugs me, and I see it all the time where an individual will record the event instead of using the phone to call for help. And they usually defend their behavior by saying, they didn't know what to do. They thought if they recorded at least, then that would provide some documentation of the event that would help the victim. So those are true points. They definitely exist. I think the better thing to do if you're a bystander is to get help, if you can. Now, if the individual was hiding in the bathroom and was afraid to get involved and, is recording it for the reasons we just addressed, then I'm okay with it. But more often than not, the peer group records the event, circulates it broadly before any adult in their community is aware of it. They're not good bystanders when they do that. So they can justify what they did until they're blue in the face. But the truth of the matter is a better citizen would then get help if they can.
What trend are you seeing when it comes to school-based violence across Canada right now?
There seems to be a little bit of an uptick, and the data always lag behind. So the kind of data that we get access to tends to be dated by a few years. I have a large study where we're lucky where we can get data right away and look at this. There's a little bit of an underreporting that happens at schools as well when it comes to serious events. These ones are hard to ignore again because it was so salient, it was so obvious, there was a recording. But when I hear from school boards all the time telling me that they've noticed an uptick and they have referrals, like office referrals to the principal's office going up, I pay attention to it because that is very good evidence that there's an increase. So the data at this point seems to suggest that there is a universal uptick across Canada.
Do we understand why?
The one thing about aggression is it tends to be contagious. So when you see an uptick, it tends to think of it like a virus. It's in a sense contagious. Aggression begets aggression. So when we don't have a good handle on it, we tend to see this. This could get carried away and become even more of a problem than it is. So that might be what's driving this.
We've done individual stories here now in Manitoba. I mean, obviously these cases, but we also had the Teacher Society with they put out a report last year talking about in schools, reflecting what you're saying, more violence in classrooms and student on student, student to teacher. And we also are hearing, I mean, in this case, that one of the girls is staying home because one of the perpetrators in the group was allowed back at school. We also did an interview with Inner City Youth Alive. They work with a whole bunch of kids, and they said they work with a lot of kids that stay away from school because someone that's been violent is at school. So this is affecting a whole bunch of people. Do you have thoughts, given your area of expertise, about what schools could do to reduce violence and bullying, given how complicated this can get fast?
It is so complicated, and it's going to be really hard to just come up with one solution. The evidence suggests that we reduce violence by having more supervision, better supervision, and more supervision. So that would be a really easy fix. But of course, it's not going to address all of the problems. But if we had more adults keeping an eye on kids, then things would be a lot better. One of the issues that we can't address is like that schools have their hands tied in a lot of ways because of privacy legislation. The individuals who are involved are also young people, and we don't want to put them at further risk. The studies are really clear that when you suspend or use expulsion on kids who are in trouble, they tend to then have even more problems and are a threat to their communities even more than what they started off as. So it is hard because if I was victimized or if my child was victimized, I certainly would be thinking about their rights and wanting them to be safe. And they absolutely have a right to be spared from oppression and humiliation and violence in schools. But then we also have young people who are engaging in this behavior who are vulnerable, and we have to be taking care of them as well. So it is an impossible situation in so many ways. We tend to want to take out our pitchfork right away and address it swiftly and make sure that they're so severely punished. But at the end of the day, that punishment comes with consequences that could also put people at risk for the future. So we have to be thinking about all these factors when we're making decisions.
The school and the division, to your point, aren't discussing the incident or the consequences the students will face. I do wonder, though, after many years of talking about guidelines and policies and anti-bullying initiatives and things that are on the books, whether or not we know if they work.
They don't work very well. And I've said this and I'll say it again. I've been at this for 25 years and maybe I'm not good at my job and that's why we haven't reduced it. But we know that we can get a reduction at best at about 20%. And I mean, that's better than nothing. But a large part of the issue is engaging the bystanders. I don't think the programs that we've had in the past were really good at implicating them in our intervention. Or involving them, implicating is the wrong word. And so I think that we need to be rethinking how we're doing interventions on bullying bullying interventions need to be rethought for sure. So 20% at best, and that's heartbreaking because we have about 30% of kids in Canada are bullied, and 10% of them are bullied on a daily basis, and they're suffering greatly, and we're not able to manage this situation.
We could talk for hours. We don't have hours, but I wonder before I let you go this morning whether or not there's anything you feel is imperative to add that's outside of what we've discussed already.
I think just a better relationship between families and schools would be really important too. If you ever have the occasion where the school contacts you about your child's behavior, listen to them. They don't make mistakes. They are calling you because something's off and they want your child to do well, and work with them, because really reducing their externalizing behavior and making sure the rights of others aren't violated is really important. So I think that if you get that uncomfortable call, be open-minded, listen, and work with the schools.
Tracy Vinecourt, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Take care.
Vinecourt, the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention. She's also a professor at the University of Ottawa, as you heard, been studying this for years. I spoke with her after the show yesterday on the heels of these two alleged incidents where Ukrainian newcomers were encountered violent incidents, assaults at Oak Park High School in Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us this morning on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube on CBC. We still have World Report coming up at 7 o'clock. It's 3 minutes to right now. After 7 o'clock on the program, we are going to have a conversation with a Winnipeg family about Huntington's disease. There could be hope on the horizon for those with this rare nerve-destroying disease, which is genetically passed down. You have a 50% chance of getting it if you have a parent that has Huntington's. But we're going to hear what some breakthrough findings could mean for those that have this in their families. We'll start with the Winnipeg family we'll hear from after 8 on the show. So stay tuned for that. Quick traffic note before we turn to Heather. Westbound Dougal just past Plessy. There's a stall blocking the median lane. We got a call about that. Keep right to pass. Westbound Dougal just past Plessy. 788-3093 is the commuter line. Let's go to Heather now and find out what's making news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it is being called a huge loss for a Northern Manitoba First Nation. The longtime fire chief at Pimachikamak Cree Nation, Raymond McKay, has died. MKO, the Northern Chiefs Group, says McKay was instrumental in keeping the community safe during wildfire evacuations this past summer. A new development is coming to a long, empty plot of land in St. Boniface. Shindico has acquired more than 14 acres, or about 5 hectares of land in St. Boniface Industrial Park. That site is going to become a mix of industrial, retail, parks, and housing. It's a site near Marion and Archibald that used to be the Canada Packers meatpacking plant site. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
And we'll have more on that coming up after 8. The founder and chairman over at Shindico, Sandy Schindelman, will join us live here on CBC for their part of the project and to talk more about why they're involved and when they expect shovels in the ground. Let's dip into the weather here. 2 degrees in Winnipeg right now, mostly cloudy. It's cloudy over in Brandon. You're at 0. And in Thompson, it's now 1 degree, and it's also mostly cloudy. We're going to stay cloudy in Winnipeg for the day. Our high is going to be 7 degrees. With wind chill, it's going to feel like -5. So bundle up if you're out there this morning. And stay right here because more coming up on CBC. As I mentioned, World Reports up at 8. It's 1 minute to.
Today on Q. Greg Wells is an award-winning record producer. He's worked with some of the biggest artists in the world. He was also recently made a member of the Order of Canada. So he'll be here to talk about his life in music and why he's renovated an old church in rural Newfoundland.
And it has created this whole thing in my life that I can't imagine my life not having in it.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Autism numbers have been climbing in part because of an expanded definition of what the diagnosis means. But one expert wants to see autism split into two different categories based on severity and says that would help her own daughter. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The Prime Minister will deliver a live address tonight from Ottawa. Mark Carney's office is calling it a budget preview, and it comes as the opposition leaders are saying they won't support a minority Liberal budget unless specific demands are met. Janice McGregor reports.
Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon yesterday was criticizing the opposition for not being realistic and making what he called ludicrous demands.
And when I see opposition parties ruling out the possibility of voting for the budget, that's starting to worry me.
Pierre Poilievre's demand to hold the budget deficit to $42 billion at a time when the Liberals are rolling out ambitious plans for defense spending, energy infrastructure, housing. That's the demand that seems most certain to be ignored, as is the list of demands the Bloc Québécois laid out last week, including 6 non-negotiable priorities that include more unconditional provincial transfers and a renewal of their demand to increase seniors' pensions. New Democrats say they're going to wait and analyze a budget when they see it. Liberals are so close to having a majority, however, that a few strategic absences or abstentions may be all it takes to get this initial budget approved and, of course, avoid an election. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
The International Court of Justice reads an important opinion this hour. The landmark statement is about Israel's legal obligations toward UN agencies working in the occupied Palestinian territories. The opinion is not binding but carries moral and diplomatic weight. It comes as humanitarian agencies are desperate to get more aid into Gaza. Crystal Gomansing reports.
If we had more crossing points, we would be able to deliver more aid.
Only 2 crossing points leading to the southern strip are open, says Kate Newton with the World Food Programme, Karem Shalom and Kisufim.
At the moment, we've been moving more than 100 trucks a day on good days and less than that on less good days.
How much aid gets into Gaza, which has areas with declared famine conditions, depends on what's happening on the ground, the speed of Israeli inspections, and what items they allow in. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is the World Health Organization's Director General.
If you take the famine and then combine it with a mental health problem that we see, which is rampant, the situation is a crisis for generations to come.
Humanitarian agencies hope to see more action on aid with the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and the President's son-in-law Jared Kushner, all in Israel. Vance says the ceasefire is going better than expected.
And given the history of conflict, I think that everybody should be proud of where we are today.
Regional security, the reconstruction of Gaza, and the return of the remaining 13 deceased hostages still in Gaza are all part of conversations the vice president is having with Israeli officials. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A meeting is on hold between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump says he doesn't want the meeting to be, quote, a waste of time. The two leaders were going to meet in Budapest in the coming weeks. Now the White House says there are no plans for a meeting in the immediate future. Meanwhile, both Ukraine and Russia launched more strikes overnight. Fire crews evacuate an apartment building in Zaporizhia. Ukraine's president says the city was one of many targeted in Russian overnight assaults. Volodymyr Zelensky says at least 6 people were killed in attacks on residential buildings. Ukraine's military says it attacked a Russian chemical plant, as well as an oil refinery and an ammunition plant. Germany and Norway are making a high-level pitch for Canada to join their submarine initiative. Their defense ministers have been in Ottawa lobbying government officials to pick their multi-billion-dollar program. They're up against a rival company from South Korea. But the European ministers say the decision is more about partnership than price. Murray Brewster explains.
We can provide
a very good submarine.
Boris Pistorius, Germany's defense minister, doing his very best not to sound like a submarine salesman following 2 days of meetings with Canadian officials. Prime Minister Mark Carney is about to embark this week on a trip to the Indo-Pacific, where he'll be visiting South Korea's Hanwha Ocean Shipyard, the rival to German submarine maker TKMS. More than 2 decades ago, Germany helped South Korea get into the submarine building business. Now they're rivals.
When it comes to the submarine cooperation with South Korea, this is the way things happen. I mean, we cooperate, they build excellent submarines, we build better ones.
Both Pistorius and Norwegian Defence Minister Tor Sandvik took pains to say the potential partnership with Canada is about more than a submarine sales job. It's about maritime security in the North Atlantic, where Russia, despite its massive losses in Ukraine, is still active.
That the Northern Fleet is intact. They're testing new weapons, hypersonic. They're testing new torpedoes, nuclear-driven, to threaten our allies, but also Norway. So for us to have strategic partnership with Germany, developing submarines, but also to invite Canada into this cooperation as partners is important.
Canada's Navy says both the German and South Korean submarines meet the requirements. A decision on which shipyard gets the contract could happen next year. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
The interim president of Peru is declaring a state of emergency for 30 days in the capital, Lima.
El estado de emergencia aprobado por el Consejo de Ministros entra en vigencia a las...
Jose Jerry says this is to fight crime. The former president, Dina Boluarte, was impeached over the increase in crime and accusations of corruption. Last week, anti-government demonstrations left hundreds injured and one person killed. Young people are protesting the rise in extortion and other violent crime. Between January and September, police reported almost 1,700 homicides. That's 200 more than the same time last year. In Paris, people line up outside the Louvre early this morning. The museum is reopening 3 days after it was robbed. Officials say thieves pried open a window and stole French crown jewels from the Apollo Gallery. That part of the museum is closed to the public. So far, there have been no arrests in the heist. The stolen jewels have an estimated value of more than $142 million Canadian. The director of the Louvre will be questioned by France's Senate Culture Committee today. She'll be asked about security at the museum. 2 new reports on last year's wildfire in Jasper, Alberta confirm it was caused by lightning. They conclude dry conditions and tornado-force winds hit 200 kilometers an hour. To fuel that fire, it started as 3 separate incidents before merging into one. That fire destroyed a third of the town's buildings in July of 2024. Some 25,000 residents and visitors were forced to leave the community. They're being called Canada's team, and baseball fans across the country are getting ready to watch the Toronto Blue Jays play in the World Series. But in Montreal, Expos fans say it's complicated. Sarah Levitt has more.
Gary Carter, the best.
One of Brian Bloomer's bedrooms is a shrine to the Montreal Expos, covered in photos, jerseys, and hats.
We used to go to 10 games a year, 111 QQ. I really honestly miss them.
The Montreal Expos were Canada's first Major League Baseball team. 1969 was their inaugural season, but it all ended in 2004, and Bloomer had to find himself a new team, the Toronto Blue Jays.
The Toronto Blue Jays are going to the World Series.
They're Canada's team now. You have to cheer for them whether you live in Montreal, Vancouver, Alberta, or Saskatchewan.
Not everybody agrees, including Noah Seidel.
It's our birthright as Montrealers to hate Toronto sports teams. I mean, could you ever imagine a sports fan from Boston cheering for a team from New York? It doesn't make any sense.
It goes deeper than that. The emotions are felt perhaps more acutely with the newly released Netflix documentary, Who Killed the Montreal Expos?
Why? Why is that team gone?
A complicated question with multiple suspects and no clear answer. Some fans, like David Winch, still hold a grudge against the Blue Jays for voting in favor of eliminating the Expos.
Very sadly, the Blue Jays as an organization, through its president, voted yes. Well, come on, it was the Expos that introduced Major League Baseball to Canada.
Something many Expos fans won't soon forgive, even if the Jays are in the World Series. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
I wondered how long it was going to take for the Expos fans to weigh in on everything. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're on CBC. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube is where you can join us today. And thanks for being here. This half hour on the program, there has been a potential breakthrough in the treatment of Huntington's disease, which can be devastating if it's in your family. We're going to hear from a Winnipeg family impacted by Huntington's about what this might mean. Also this hour on the program, as you may have heard in the news this morning, Shindico's one step closer to helping to develop the old Canada Packers and public markets lands out in St. Boniface. We're going to talk to the head of Shindico this half hour about what they are planning for their part of what is a major mixed-use development at the site of the old Packers plant. They're involved in developing retail in what would be called in the future the Water Tower District in Winnipeg. So stay tuned, we'll get some details. Right now, here's Heather Wells with news headlines.
Good morning. Well, the number of children in care in Manitoba is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year, about 3% more than the year before. Legislative amendments that came in last fall were designed to place more young people with family in kinship arrangements, and as of March, about 42 were in those settings. The Sisler Spartans will have Darius Hartshorn in their hearts and on their helmets the next time they take to the field. The grade 12 student suffered life-changing injuries in a game last week. Sisler's head coach says the teens' teammates will wear decals with his number 57 on their helmets when they open the playoffs tomorrow night. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
Abby, what's the weather like?
We do have clear skies in Winnipeg right now, Marcy. The fog still seen at 1, and at the airport we're reporting -3. Most of the regions down south we're looking at between 0 and 1 degree right now, while up north Thompson is at 1 heading to 4, The Par is at 4 heading to 7, and Churchill is at 0 heading to 1.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi, and now Corey Funk with our commute.
We're entering stalled car season. 3 stalls to keep an eye out for. First, stalled truck in the middle lane, southbound Pembina, just past Osborne, a confusion corner there. Heard from Chris about that. Causes some backups, as you can imagine. Also heard from another Corey, southbound West Perimeter at McGillivray. There's a stalled semi in the right lane. Looks like it just stalled. Folks are trying to zip around it, but as you can imagine, that might cause some backups for folks. And finally, this has been a problem for about the last 20 minutes, or 40 minutes or so. Westbound Dougal, just past Plessis. There's a stall blocking the median lane westbound on Dougal. Keep right to get around that. If you see anything else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as we mentioned, Winnipeg's Water Tower District development is one step closer to taking shape. Shindico Realty announcing yesterday they've purchased just over 14 acres of land. This is at the southeast corner of Archibald and Marion in St. Boniface. So the plan is to develop their part of this into a retail center. It's part of a larger plan with Alberta-based Alexa Developments to develop 165 acres of the old Canada Packers public markets lands into parks, commercial and industrial buildings, and then 2,000 units of housing, mixed-use housing, mostly condos, we understand, and apartments. The site was once home of the Union Stockyards and Canada Packers Meatpacking, as mentioned. That was demolished 25 years ago. What will it look like in the future? Well, Sandy Schindelman is with us to talk about it, founder and chairman over at Shindico Realty. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why'd you want to be part of this project?
Well, it's become full circle. 52 years ago, I worked in the Union Stockyards as a cattle buyer and provided a lot of the meat that went into the Burns plant, now a Maple Leaf hog plant, but it was a beef plant at that time. And so that was my old stomping grounds. When the opportunity came, Rob Scaletta of our office and his client, Alexa Developments, Calgary-based, looked at the land and saw the great potential that it had. We decided to come on board. And in a couple of ways. Shindico with Rob is leading the development and the entitlements and dealing with the city and the province and all the levels of government that you have to do to get the infrastructure put in that the developer paid for all the infrastructure, by the way. And then it became time to kick it off. Alexa is in the business of joint venturing the multi-res, and we have a joint venture. We have I got Alexa talking to me now.
No worries. So they're kicking off all of the residential and mixed use, and you guys are going to be doing partnering retail, right?
Well, no, we're doing the retail ourselves, and we have a joint venture on about 10 acres of multifamily right adjacent to that. That joint venture is with Alexa. So we'll be able to put, about 700 units of rental, concrete rental, the style of which we've been successful with at our Taylor Avenue development.
I was going to ask you about that, Mr. Schindelman. Like, what would it compare to? And you're saying Taylor, so that would be by the Walmart on Taylor and then the apartment behind there?
Yes, well, in front, actually. We have one more going in. We hope to be in the ground in about 3 months on a third building there. But it's a high amenity space, concrete, soundproof as much as humanly possible, big balconies, a common space, kind of like as close to a resort as you can get in a rental apartment building.
What do you envision the impact will be on the St. Boniface neighborhood and on Greater Winnipeg? How do you see this connecting in?
Okay, yeah, very good question. Well, this is the true definition of infill, as Taylor is. It'll lift the entire neighborhood up. We expect values to increase once we get going across the street where there's a lot of older product, dating from the 40s and the 30s. So that will have an opportunity to take advantage of the traffic that we hopefully will be bringing there. The retail is about 14.3 or 4 acres, and it's divided into two. One site is about 3 acres, and that'll be good for QSR, quick serve restaurants, drive-throughs, etc. And we're hopeful to have a grocery anchor and discount store anchor on the other side that will serve the existing neighborhood. Never mind all the people that we expect to be living on the site and working on the site.
Do you now own all the land that you need to make this development happen then?
Yes.
And this used to be industrial land, obviously. So what still needs to be done in terms of remediation?
All the remediation has been done that we needed to do. Every development mitigation has been met. And so it's shovel ready. And it's an interesting development in that we also have our eye on a 20-acre industrial site to do an industrial park, a la the same as we've done out in the Plessis Business Park. And we're selling shovel-ready land. So we have industrial land for sale that we'll sell to other developers or users. We have Alexa's marketing mixed use, CMU use.
And then the retail.
Where people put retail and services on the main floor and apartments above. They're also in discussions for a joint venture, Alexa and another developer, to do assisted living. So we're excited about the possibilities for all the things that can happen there.
And just for a couple quick clarity questions, assisted living on that site?
Yes.
Yes. And can you share with us what you paid for the 14 acres?
I can't because I don't know.
Okay. What about the total cost of the whole project? Do we have a sense of what that is? I mean, given the extensive plan here.
165 acres, I guess it'll probably be $1 billion when it's finished, the build-out.
I was just trying to confirm because I know that the Winnipeg Free Press, of course, has also been reporting since your announcement yesterday. And Alexa, your partner, told the Free Press it was $1.5 billion for the whole project.
Yeah, I guess with the build-out, it'd be $1.5 billion.
Yeah. When do you hope to have shovels in the ground on this?
In the spring, summer of 26. We hope to have the retail taking occupancy in 27, late 27. And the residential will be a little longer because of the time to build. Typically, it takes about 2 years to build that kind of a project.
Yeah. Sandy, go ahead.
If we hope that the city doesn't slow us down because there's a dire need for housing.
Thank you very much for telling us about this. A lot of people in the city have been watching that land for many years, so we appreciate you sharing details of the development.
Well, thank you, Marcy, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being with us. Sandy Schindelman, live on CBC, founder and chairman at Shindigo Realty, giving us more information about an announcement they made yesterday on their site about their part in Winnipeg's Water Tower District development in St. Boniface.
North of North is in fashion, literally. CBC and the WAG are partnering to present Crafted on the Catwalk November 4th, a fashion show featuring cast members of the breakout comedy displaying designer clothes from Manitoba and the North. Then shop for fine handmade goods at Crafted Show and Sale November 7th to 9th. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more, including an exclusive North of North screening and meet and greet.
8:21 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and on YouTube. Let's have a quick look at the weather. It's mostly cloudy. We're still below zero at the airport, by the way. It's a little chilly out there, -3. We're going to lose more leaves today, I think, but not quite as windy as it was yesterday. Wow. Winds up to 15 km today, but our high in Winnipeg will be around 7 degrees. Well, next on CBC, hope for Huntington's. An experimental gene therapy is showing potential in slowing the debilitating progression of Huntington's disease. The European biotech company that developed the treatment says in a clinical study it slowed the progression of the disease by 75% over 3 years, which could change someone's life. Huntington's is relatively rare. It's a neurodegenerative disease. It destroys nerve cells in a person's brain. Over time, it causes someone, though, to lose movement and memories. The condition is mostly inherited. It can be fatal within 10 to 20 years of diagnosis. There's no cure. But this new treatment seems to offer a lot of promise. It should be noted, though, it's been tested on a small sample so far, but it's been human tested, 30 people. It's delivered directly to the brain in a surgery, which takes 12 hours. There are plans, though, to submit this to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration next year for marketing approval. So as I mentioned, this isn't a cure, but it is offering some hope, including to my next guests who are in studio. Ronald Reeder is with us. Ronald lost his mother, Judy, to Huntington's. His younger brother, Shale, is also living with Huntington's. Good morning.
Good morning.
And also in studio, his daughter, Tiffany Baird. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you feeling about this? I want to go to the younger generation first.
Yeah, it's super hopeful. Having watched my grandmother go through the advanced stages of Huntington's. I'm the oldest grandchild by 12 years, so my younger cousins don't have memories that I do with our grandmother. So this is just so hopeful for this next generation that it can slow down the progression of the disease, just to give more time with people. So,
when we talk about more time with people, I'm curious, Ronald, when you hear, it could slow the progression by 75%, what might that have meant in like your mom's life, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it could have changed it, greatly for sure. And we're hopeful, for my brother, and everyone else who has it, right? That those type of things. We just hope that it comes to market soon enough, right? I think that's
Yeah. I know it's a small study, but they were quite blown away by that number, 75% decrease. I guess practically, would it potentially mean a person like your brother perhaps could have like worked longer, or what are the examples of what it would give back?
For sure. I think work longer and be able to enjoy, life longer, right? And just it's a game changer. And I think the other thing is that hopefully, if they're able to slow it down 75%, maybe they could even get it to 100%, right? Like I think that's one step closer to a cure, perhaps, maybe.
Your mother, you did lose to Huntington's. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for her in terms of her losses? Because I understand this disease, because I know it quite well, just personally speaking. Just so listeners know, it'll plateau for a while, and then all of a sudden the symptoms will hit you and you can kind of drop. What were her losses like? What was it like for her?
I mean, over time, it was fairly traumatic, right? She did lose, first you lose your ability to walk, right? And then she basically lost her ability to speak, to communicate, to move, really. It really affected all ability of life, right? In the last couple of years, her quality of life was very poor, for sure.
I know it affects people sometimes more mentally, more in your brain or more physically. It depends on the person. When did it start for your mom? How young was she?
I think she was around mid-50, around 50 in her 50s. Yeah.
She was quite young.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things is that until they know what it is, it takes a while to get diagnosed, I think, unless you're aware that that's an issue in your family.
What does it get misdiagnosed as often?
Well, I think
Parkinson's is similar.
Yeah. Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, I've also heard sometimes.
Yeah.
How is your younger brother or your Uncle Shale doing? Either of you can answer.
Yeah, he's doing well. He's retired now. He is he does have Huntington's, so he is living his life to the fullest now. He has two beautiful daughters, my cousins, who are in high school. One's learning how to drive now, so that's both scary and exciting. But he gets to be a part of that, and he's loving it. He collects Volkswagen Beetles and Volkswagen cars, so he's just loving that.
You guys have been very involved in trying to help locally as well. You do the go-karting for Huntington's. There's this event that happens every year to raise awareness. How does the fundraiser work?
It's definitely one of those fundraisers where it's the most fun fundraiser, to be cheesy. You raise money and then you race go-karts around a track. It's at Thunder Rapids every year, super early in the morning. It's a really great fundraiser. This year in September, we raised $30,000 in event itself, and over the years, they've raised, what was it, over?
I think it's over seven. I have a number that says over $750,000.
Yeah, I was going to say it was over 700,000. So and it's just great.
I'm asking about it because obviously that's about, families individually like yours just coming together to try to find some hope, to try to fund some research. And then here we are sitting today with this news of this incredible study. There's been some time since there's been any news that was hopeful. What was it like in your family, when because this is genetically passed along? What was it like in your family when this news came?
We were definitely overjoyed. There were probably some tears that were shed. Just like I remember the last time there was a breakthrough when they were able to they ran tests and they were able to cure, or not maybe cure, but slow the progression in mice. And I was like 12 or 13 years old at the time. So that was quite a long time ago now. But that was the last time that there was like a major breakthrough like this. So it's just incredible. It's so hopeful for this next generation.
One of the devastating things about Huntington's is you have a 50% chance of it passing down if a parent has it. What are your concerns about it? I know there's this decision about whether or not you might be tested genetically for it, because you could find out or you could not. It's very personal.
I would say it's good to find out, like it's your decision. But I don't know, just that knowledge of knowing that you have it and there's no cure, it's that's very difficult. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You haven't gone to find out yet. Yeah, waiting to see. Does it change how you live your life?
No, I've always kind of just like seeing how like my grandmother, she always lived her life to her fullest. Like if there was a garage sale, that was her thing. If we were driving to go meet somebody for dinner, we would stop to go to that garage sale. So I've kind of lived my life like that, live it to the fullest and do everything I can. So, yeah.
Are you the same way, Ronald? Because obviously you're the same. Your mother, died of this.
Yes, yeah, I would say so, yes.
So have you been tested ever?
Well, at one, I did once try for testing years ago, and at that time they weren't able to get the gene specific enough.
Got it.
And so they weren't able, it was of no, inconclusive.
Got it.
And then since then, I mean, now they have it down where you could get conclusive, but I haven't done that. I just, at this point, I think if they come up where they have this thing that could slow it by 75%, then I think there would be a huge benefit in getting tested, because then you would, you could participate, right, to do that or whatever. But at this point, I don't see it.
Well, let's leave this hopeful, which is the reason you both came in. So thank you both for being here and telling us about your family's journey with Huntington's.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's Ronald Reeder and his daughter, Tiffany Baird. They've both personally seen the impacts of Huntington's disease in their family. The new experimental gene therapy treatment for Huntington's disease could eventually lead to slowing progression. It's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, we have been hugging zero all morning. Right now, we are at 1. In downtown Winnipeg, it's going to be mostly cloudy today. We warm up to a seasonal high of 7. It's been empty for decades, but soon work will begin on the former Canada Packers site. The Water Tower District is near Marion and Archibald. Sandy Schindelman at Shindico says they have purchased more than 14 acres, or about 5 hectares of land on that site. He says retail and multifamily housing will go up starting next year. Schindelman says this project will transform St. Boniface.
Well, this is the true definition of infill, as Taylor is. It'll lift the entire neighborhood up. We expect values to increase once we get going across the street where there's a lot of older product.
The company hopes to turn the new development into an area where people can live, work, and play. The number of children in care in Manitoba is up for the first time in several years. The annual Families Report says 9,172 children were in care last year. That's about 3% more than the year before. Legislative amendments that came in last fall were designed to place more youth with family in kinship arrangements. As of March, about 42 were in those settings. Jamie Pfau is president of the Manitoba Foster Parent Association. She supports kinship care, but wants more oversight.
When we have even less oversight and accountability in customary and kinship care, that's alarming. And we should be focused on building capacity and promoting that. But there needs to be supports in place for that. And right now, I'm not seeing any.
The province says the hope is the kinship care policies will bring in the number of kids and bring that number of kids down. You can read more on this story on our website this morning. A Northern Manitoba First Nation is mourning the sudden death of their longtime fire chief. Manitoba Kuwaitanui Okamakinak announced yesterday Pimachikamak Cree Nation Fire Chief Raymond McKay has died. The Northern Chiefs Group says McKay was instrumental in keeping the community safe during wildfire evacuations this past summer. Pimachikamak Chief David Monias says it is a huge loss for the community.
Because we all knew him, and it's hard to replace somebody that you know so well who's done the job for such a long time. And you had a relationship with as a friend or a family. It's hard to even start to comprehend that we need to do that.
Monias says a cause of death has not yet been confirmed. MKO says plans will be released soon about an upcoming memorial service. The Prime Minister's office calls it a budget preview. Mark Carney will deliver a live address tonight from Ottawa as his government puts the final touches on what will be his first budget as Prime Minister. It is set to be tabled November 4th. Meanwhile, another fiscal analysis has been released, suggesting the federal deficit will be significantly larger than expected. The Desjardins Financial Group says it could top $74 billion. That's about $6 billion more than the parliamentary budget officer had been projecting. The Sisler Spartans will have Darius Hartshorn in their hearts and on their helmets next time they take to the field. The grade 12 student suffered life-changing injuries to his neck and spine after fielding the opening kickoff in a game last week. Sean Esselmont is the head coach and athletic director at Sisler High. He says the freak injury has hit the team and the school community hard.
He is probably one of the most genuine and wonderful young men I've had the pleasure of coaching in all of my time here. He has just such a big personality. He is everyone's best friend on the team, everyone's brother, and he has just been a wonderful and joy to coach for these past 4 years.
With Hartshorn still in hospital, Esselmont says his teammates will wear decals with his number 57 on their helmets when they open playoffs tomorrow night. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, last look at our commute this morning with Corey.
Stalled truck in the middle lane southbound Pembina just past Osborne. Look out for that as well. Stalled truck as well west perimeter southbound at McGillivray, as well as Ronnie called and said city crews are blocking westbound Marion to do some work there as well between Archibald and Happyland Park.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
The weather now, Abby.
A mix of sun and clouds already giving way to clear skies across the southern part of the province. We're looking at -2 to 2 degrees this morning, and most regions warm up to about 7 degrees, while up north we'll see temperatures between 4 and 7 degrees later.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank
the
you.
call-in on Radio Noon. What do you think of the choice for the Grey Cup halftime show? MGK, the artist, not Canadian. A lot of people weighing in on that. You can call in between 12:30 and 1. Thanks to those who put the show together today. Zubina Ahmed, videographer Randall McKenzie, Sierra Sanders, Jenna Badosso, and Shanley Vidal, who's our community reporter. The others are associate producers. Big thanks to everyone for your work. Also, our live team, Corey Funk, Abby Adeyemi, and Darren Marash, who produces our YouTube stream if you're watching. Also, our senior producers. So Nellie Gonzalez is the producer of all the shows in our current affairs unit here, and Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba overall. My name is Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us. This is CBC and The Current coming up next. Take care. Have a good day.